Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the world of the medieval winter, where the heat of a cow was the difference between life and death. The sun is sinking below the grey hills. The air is turning cold, biting at your nose. It feels like ice against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the frozen fields like a cold river, finding every gap in your clothes tunic. You can hear the dry, dead grass snapping under your boots. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are standing at the very edge of the world you know. Behind you are the great woods, dark and deep, where the wolves live and the trees groan in the wind. In front of you is the path home. The sky is a heavy dark blue, the colour of a bruise, and the very last of the sun is a thin line of orange on the horizon. It does not look like a warm sun. It looks like a cold fire, far away and fading fast. You can feel the change in the air. During the day, the sun gave a little bit of help, but now that it is gone, the true winter is waking up. The cold is not just a feeling, it is like a weight. It presses against your chest. Every time you breathe in, the air feels sharp, like tiny needles going into your throat. You watch your breath come out of your mouth. It looks like white smoke, swirling for a second before the wind whisks it away. This is the time of year when the earth goes to sleep and everything turns to stone. The mud in the path, which was soft and sticky just a few weeks ago, is now frozen into hard, jagged ridges. You have to be careful where you step. If you trip, the ground will not be kind. It is as hard as the floor of a church. You are wearing your winter clothes, but they feel thin against this kind of wind. You have a tunic made of russet. Russet is a very coarse, thick cloth made from the wool of the local sheep. It is a reddish-brown colour, the colour of dried leaves or a fox's fur. It is itchy against your skin, a constant little prickle that reminds you it is there, but it is strong. It was woven by your mother and your sisters during the long nights of the spring. It smells of the sheep it came from, a bit oily and earthy, and it smells of the wood smoke from your hearth. Under the tunic you have linen shirts, layered one over the other to trap the warmth of your body. You reach up and pull your hood forward. This hood is made of the same heavy wool. It has a long tail that hangs down your back, which you can wrap around your neck like a scarf. You tuck your chin down into the wool. The smell of the fabric is comforting. It smells of home. Even though the air is freezing, the spot right next to your skin is still a little bit warm. You have to keep that warmth safe. In this world, warmth is like gold. You cannot afford to lose any of it. You start to walk. The sound of your boots on the frozen ground is the only thing you can hear. It is a rhythmic crunch, crunch, crunch. The world is very quiet now. The birds that sang in the hedges during the summer are all gone, or they are hiding deep in the bushes, fluffed up into little balls of feathers to stay alive. There are no insects buzzing in the grass. There are no carts moving on the distant road. Everyone is heading inside. The night belongs to the cold, and the cold is a hungry thing. As you walk, you look down at the grass by the side of the path. Each blade of grass is covered in a white crust. It is frost. It looks like tiny sparkling jewels in the fading light. When you look closely, you can see the shapes of the ice crystals. They are beautiful, but they are also a sign of danger. The frost tells you that the water in the ground is turning to ice. It tells you that if you stayed out here all night without a fire or a shelter, the frost would start to grow on you too. It would find your fingers and your toes and turn them numb. In the Middle Ages, the night was a very different thing than it is today. There were no street lamps. There were no glowing windows in the distance. When the sun went down, the world became a place of shadows. People believe the night was a time when the world changed, and it was better to be behind a thick door with your family. The darkness was total. It was like being at the bottom of a deep black well. The only light you have to guide you is the memory of the path and the very faint glow of the stars beginning to poke through the clouds. You stop for a moment. Just a moment. It is important to be still sometimes, even when it is cold. You look up at the sky. The stars are very bright tonight because the air is so cold and dry. The stars look like holes poked in a black blanket, letting the light of heaven shine through. They do not twinkle. They stare down with a cold, steady light. You find the stars, you know the ones that tell you which way is north, the ones that tell you the season is turning toward the deepest part of the year. The silence is huge. It stretches out over the fields and the woods. There is no sound of engines, no hum of electricity, no distant voices. It is just you and the wind. The wind makes a long, low sound as it passes through the bare branches of an old oak tree nearby. It sounds like a sigh. It makes you feel very small. You are just one person in a vast, frozen landscape. You think about the house waiting for you. The Longhouse. It is a simple building made of timber and stone with a roof of thick straw. But right now, it is the most important place in the universe. It is the only place where the cold cannot get to you. You can picture the door, heavy and made of oak, with a simple iron latch. Inside that door, there will be a fire. It won't be a big fire because wood is precious and hard to gather in the snow, but it will be a light. You move your fingers inside your woolen sleeves. They are a bit stiff. You rub your hands together, and the sound of the rough fabric rubbing against itself is loud in the quiet air. You need to keep moving. As long as you move, your blood stays warm. Your heart is like a little stove inside your chest, pumping heat to your arms and legs, but you can feel the cold trying to take that heat away. It pulls at your shoulders. It nips at your ears. A longhouse is a special kind of building. It is called that because it is long and narrow. It is built this way so that everyone can be under one roof. In the summer, you spend all your time outside, working the land, but in the winter, the longhouse becomes your entire world. It is where you eat, where you sleep, and where you wait for the sun to come back in the spring. You can see the village now. It is just a cluster of dark shapes against the grey snow. There are no lights in the windows because there are no glass windows. The openings in the walls are small and covered with wooden shutters or pieces of oiled cloth to keep the wind out. The only way you know people are there is the smell. The smell of burning peat and wood drifts toward you on the wind. It is a rich, smoky smell. It smells like safety. You see a thin trail of smoke rising from the middle of one of the roofs. That is your home. The smoke rises straight up for a bit and then gets caught by the wind, dancing away into the dark. You imagine your family inside. They will be sitting near the hearth, perhaps mending a tool or spinning wool, and the animals will be there too. You can almost hear the low sound of a cow or the shuffle of a sheep's hoof on the straw. You reach the edge of your own garden plot. The kale plants are shriveled and covered in frost, but they are still standing. You walk past the haystack, which is piled high and covered with an old cloth to keep the snow off. This hay is like food and fuel at the same time. It feeds the animals, and the animals, in turn, feed the house with their heat. The cold has become even sharper in the last few minutes. The orange line on the horizon is gone. Now it is just dark. You reach the door of the longhouse. You put your hand on the cold wood. You can feel the vibration of the wind hitting the building. But the house stands firm. It is strong. It is strong. It has seen many winters before this one, and it will see many more. You lift the latch. The metal is so cold it feels like it might stick to your skin. You press down and the door swings open. As you step over the high wooden sill, a wave of different air hits you. It's not hot like a modern house, but compared to the freezing field, it feels like a warm blanket. It is heavy with the scent of dried grass, the musk of large animals, and the sharp tang of wood smoke. It is the smell of life huddled together against the death of winter. You step inside and pull the door shut behind you, dropping the heavy wooden bar into place. The thud of the bar sounds final. The night is outside. You are inside. You are safe. The house is waiting for you. It is a long, low shape in the dark, and from a distance, it looks like a large animal crouching in the snow. It does not stand tall like the stone castles you have seen from far away. It hugs the earth. It stays close to the ground because that is where it is safest from the wind. The wind can be a very cruel thing in the middle of winter. It searches for anything sticking up and tries to pull it down, but your house is built to let the wind slide right over the top. As you walk closer, the shape of the roof becomes clearer. It is very thick. It is made of many layers of straw and reeds, piled up until it is as deep as your arm is long. This is called a thatched roof. In the summer, birds might hide in it, and sometimes little mice find a warm corner there, but now it is frozen solid. The snow has settled on top of it, creating a white blanket that helps keep the heat inside. It is a strange thing to think about, but the snow actually helps keep you warm. It acts like a second roof, stopping the cold air from getting through the straw. You stop for a minute and look at the walls. They are not made of big cold stones like the Lord's Manor. your walls are made of something much humbler. They're made of wattle and daub. That sounds like a funny name, but it is a very clever way to build a wall. First, your father and the neighbours wove together thin branches of willow or hazel. They made a giant basket, really. That is the wattle part. Then they took a mixture of mud, straw, and animal hair and smeared it all over the branches. That is the daub. When it dries, it becomes hard like a shell. You reach out a hand and touch the wall. It feels bumpy and rough. In some places, you can feel the bits of straw sticking out of the dried mud. This wall is the only thing between you and the freezing night. It is thick and strong. It doesn't let the wind through. Every few years, your family has to add a new layer of mud to fix the cracks that appear when the sun gets too hot or the rain gets too heavy. It is a house that needs to be cared for, just like a person needs to be cared for. You move toward the end of the house where the family stays. One very interesting thing about how these houses are built is their position on the land. People in your village always build their longhouses on a little bit of a slope. The part where the people live is always on the higher ground, and the part where the animals live is on the lower ground. This is a very simple and smart historical trick. It means that if the floor gets wet or if the animals make a mess, everything flows down away from the beds and the cooking fire. It keeps the living space a little bit cleaner and a bit drier. The ground under your feet is very hard now. The mud of the yard has frozen into little peaks and valleys. You have to watch your step so you do not twist your foot. In your hand you are carrying a small wooden bucket. It is empty now, but tomorrow morning you will take it to the well. The wood of the bucket is dark and wet, and the iron rings that hold it together are cold to the touch. You set the bucket down by the door. You will not need it until the sun comes up again. You take a deep breath and look back at the fields one last time. The darkness is so deep now that you can barely see where the sky ends and the land begins. It is a vast, empty world out there. But here, right in front of you, is your home. You can feel a tiny bit of warmth coming through the cracks in the wooden door. It is not much, but it is enough to tell you that the fire is still going. There is a moment of total silence. The wind has died down for just a second. In this quiet moment, you can hear the house. It makes little creaking sounds. The wood of the frame is settling. The straw of the roof is rustling. And if you listen very closely, you can hear a low, vibrating sound. It is a very deep sound, almost too low to hear. It is the sound of the cows inside. They are shifting their weight. They are breathing. It is a sound that means life. It is a sound that means you are not alone in the dark. The longhouse is about 20 feet wide and maybe 60 feet long. It is like a long tunnel made of wood and mud. Inside, there are no separate rooms like you might see in a grand house. It is one big, open space. This is very important for the winter. If you had many rooms, the heat from the fire would get trapped in one place and would not reach the rest of the house. By having one long room, the warmth can travel from the hearth in the middle all the way to the ends. Every bit of heat is shared by everyone. You look at the door again. It is made of thick planks of oak. Oak is a very hard and heavy wood. It takes a long time to grow, and it is very difficult to cut, but it lasts for 100 years. The door is grey from the rain and the sun, but it is still solid. There is a small hole near the bottom of the door. This is for the cat. Even in the middle of winter, the cat has work to do. It keeps the mice away from the grain you have stored in the rafters. The cat is a part of the house, just like the cows and the sheep. You feel a shiver run down your back. The cold is starting to get through your thick wool tunic. It has been a long day of working in the woods, gathering what little dry fuel you could find. Your muscles are tired and your fingers are starting to feel a bit numb. You need to get inside. You need to be near the fire and the breathing animals. You think about the night shift. That is what this time of year feels like. While the rest of the world is sleeping or hidden away, the people in the longhouses are doing the quiet work of staying alive. It is a slow, steady job. It is about keeping the fire small but burning. It is about making sure the animals are fed. It is about staying together. You reach for the door latch again. It is a simple piece of iron shaped by the village blacksmith. It is cold, but you don't mind. You know that as soon as you lift it, you will leave the ice and the wind behind. You will step into the world of the longhouse. You will be back in the center of your world, where it is dark and smoky, but also safe and warm. The stars above are very bright now. They look like tiny white fires in the sky. They are beautiful, but they provide no warmth. You turn your back on them and look at the solid, dark wall of your home. You are ready to go in. You are ready to leave the big, empty night and find your place in the small, crowded warmth of the Longhouse. You lift the latch, and the door moves with a familiar creak. You step over the wooden sill, and the world of the winter field disappears behind you. As you pull the door shut, the heavy bar drops into place with a solid clunk. It is a sound that marks the end of your day. The outside world, with its biting wind and freezing stars, is now gone. You are in a different world now. It is dark at first, so dark that you have to stand still for a moment to let your eyes adjust. The only light comes from the very center of the room, where a few red coals are glowing in the hearth. It is a soft orange light that does not reach the corners of the Longhouse. Instead, it casts long dancing shadows against the walls. The first thing you notice is the air. It is very thick. Out in the fields, the air was thin and sharp, but here it feels heavy and warm against your face. It is like stepping into a warm bath, but instead of water, it is made of smells and heat. It is a very busy smell. It is the smell of wood smoke that has soaked into the very wood of the roof. It is the smell of dried herbs hanging from the rafters, thyme and sage and mint, which give off a tiny bit of sweetness, but mostly it is the smell of the animals. To some, the smell of a barn might seem strong, but to you, it is the smell of safety. It is a mix of sweet, dried hay, the earthy scent of manure, and the warm, musky smell of the cow's fur. In the Middle Ages, this smell meant that your wealth was safe. Your animals were your most important things, and having them right here, under the same roof as you, meant that they were warm and fed. If the animals were happy, the family would survive the winter. You take a deep breath, and the warm, heavy air fills your lungs. It feels good. It feels like home. You take a step forward, and your boots sink into the floor. The floor is not made of wood or stone. It is made of hard-packed earth, but you cannot see the dirt, because it is covered in a thick layer of rushes and straw. This is your carpet. Every few months you bring in fresh straw to lay down, and it helps keep the cold from coming up out of the ground. The straw makes a soft, rustling sound as you move. It is a dry, golden sound. There is a very important reason why the door you just walked through is so low. You had to duck your head to get inside. This was not because people were shorter back then, although they were a little bit smaller than people today. The door is low to keep the heat inside. You see, heat likes to rise. It floats up toward the ceiling. If the door was tall, all that precious warm air would rush out over your head every time you opened it. By keeping the door low, the warm air stays trapped near the roof, like a big, invisible balloon. You also notice that the bottom of the doorway has a very high wooden sill. This is a thick piece of timber that you have to step over to get inside. We call this the threshold. In your time, the threshold has a job. It acts like a little dam. It keeps all the straw and the rushes on the floor from being kicked out into the mud when you go in and out. It also keeps the cold winter drafts from crawling across the floor and chilling your feet. It is a simple piece of wood, but it does a lot of work to keep you comfortable. You stand there in the dim light, perfectly still. This is a moment of quiet reflection. The house is very calm. You can hear the fire popping occasionally as a tiny pocket of air inside a log gets too hot and bursts. You can hear the wind outside, but it sounds different now. It is no longer a scary, biting thing. Now it is just a low hum, a whoosh against the thatch. It sounds like the ocean, far away. You are safe in your wooden shell. You feel a sense of peace. The long day of work is over, and the night shift of keeping the house warm has begun. You reach into a small bag hanging from your belt and pull out a little tool. It is a small iron striker light. You use it to spark a small piece of dried fungus or wood. But you don't need to do that tonight, because the fire is still there, waiting for you. Instead, you look for your dip. This is a micro-history detail that you use every night. A dip is a very simple candle. It is not made of fancy wax like the candles in a big cathedral. It is made from a rush-along thin plant from the river that has been peeled and dipped into melted animal fat, which you call tallow. The tallow comes from the cows or the sheep. It is a bit greasy, and it smells a little like cooking meat when it burns, but it gives you a steady, small flame. You lean over the hearth and touch the tip of your dip to a glowing coal. A tiny, yellow flame springs to life. It is not much, but it is enough to show you the way. The light from the dip is soft. It makes the room look golden. You can see the big wooden beams that hold up the roof. They are black with soot from years of fires, which actually helps protect the wood from rot and bugs. As you move deeper into the house, you pass the living side. This is where the hearth is. In the middle of the room, there is a large flat stone. This is the heart of the home. There is no chimney like you might see in a modern house. Instead, the smoke simply drifts up. It fills the space under the roof, forming a grey cloud that slowly finds its way out through small holes in the thatch or through the gaps in the gables. This smoke is actually very useful. It cures the meat hanging from the rafters, and it keeps the straw of the roof dry so it doesn't grow mold. You walk toward the other end of the longhouse, the end that is slightly lower down the slope. This is the barn side. As you move away from the fire, the air gets a little cooler, but it stays moist and heavy. You can hear the animals more clearly now. There is the huff of a cow exhaling. There is the clack of a hoof on a stone. It is a very busy kind of silence. You see the shapes of the animals in the shadows. They are standing or lying in their stalls. Their large dark eyes catch the light of your little tallow dip, reflecting it back like small glowing marbles. They are not afraid of you. They know your smell, and they know your voice. To them, you are the person who brings the hay and the water. To you, they are the reason you will stay warm tonight. The longhouse is a place where everything is connected. The grass grows in the field. You cut the grass to make hay, the cows eat the hay, and the cows give you milk and heat. It is a perfect circle. You feel the weight of your woolen tunic on your shoulders. It is a bit damp from the snow, and you can feel the warmth of your own body starting to steam it dry. You look at the low wall that separates the family from the animals. It is only about waist high. It is not there to hide the animals away, but just to keep the straw from the barn from mixing too much with the straw of the living area. You can look right over it and see your favorite cow, a big red-brown animal with white horns. She's chewing her cud. This is a slow, rhythmic grind, grind, grind sound. It is very hypnotic. You realize that in this house, you are never truly alone. Even if the rest of your family is fast asleep, the animals are always awake, breathing and moving. They are the heartbeat of the house. You stand at the wall for a moment, watching the steam rise from the cow's back. She is like a living stove, and she is already working to turn the cold night into a manageable one. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for this simple building and the creatures inside it. You are home, and the fire is waiting. You walk a little further into the house, your boots making that soft, dry sound on the straw. You stop and look up. Even in the dim light of your small tallow candle, you can see the bones of the house. That is how you think of the wooden beams. They are like the bones of a great silent giant that is holding its breath to keep you safe. These beams are not straight and perfect, like the boards you might see today. They are thick and twisted, following the natural shape of the trees they once were. Most of the wood in your house is oak. Oak is a very special tree. It grows slowly, and as it grows, it becomes very hard and very heavy. When your father and his friends built this house, they did not go to a shop to buy wood. They went into the deep forest. They looked for trees that had a natural curve to them. They were looking for crocks. A crock is a large, curved beam of wood. When you put two of them together, they look like a giant V turned upside down. They look like the ribs of a massive whale. These crocks start at the ground and go all the way up to the very top of the roof. They carry all the weight, so the walls do not have to. You reach out and touch one of the main posts. It feels cold and very rough. You can feel the marks left by the tools used to shape it. One of those tools was an auger. An auger is a long metal tool with a T-shaped handle that you turn by hand to bore holes into the wood. After the holes were made, your family didn't use metal nails to hold the house together. Metal is very expensive. It is hard to make and hard to find. Instead, you used tree nails. A tree nail is just a tree nail. It is a long, thin peg made of very dry wood. You drive the dry peg into the hole in the green wood, and as the wood of the house dries over many years, it shrinks and grits the peg so tightly that it will never, ever come out. It is amazing to think that this whole massive building is held together by nothing but pieces of wood biting into other pieces of wood. There is a sense of strength in there. It makes you feel like the house is one single solid piece of the earth. It does not feel like something that was just put on top of the ground. It feels like it grew out of it. The walls between the wooden posts are filled with the stones you gathered from the fields. Every time you plowed the land to plant your crops, the earth would spit up more stones. big stones, flat stones, and small round stones. You picked them up and carried them to the edge of the field, and when there were enough, you used them to make the bottom of your house walls. This keeps the wooden beams off the wet ground so they do not rot. It is a simple way of building, but it works perfectly. You look up again at the roof. Above the big oak beams there is a web of smaller branches called rafters, and on top of those rafters is the thatch. You think about how much work went into that roof. Every single piece of straw was grown in a field, harvested by hand, dried in the sun, and then tied into bundles. It took thousands and thousands of bundles to make the roof thick enough to stop the rain and the snow. When you stand under it, you are standing under the work of many seasons. You are standing under the protection of the land itself. The historical fact of the matter is that a house like this was almost never built by just one family. In your village, when someone needs a new house, everyone comes to help. One man brings his oxen to pull the heavy beams. Another man is good at weaving the wattle for the walls. The women and children gather the straw and help mix the mud for the daub. Building a house is a way of saying that you belong to the village. It is a way of making sure that everyone has a place to be warm when the winter comes. It is a gift that the community gives to itself. You move your tallow dip closer to the wall, see a small crack. You have to fix that when the spring comes, but for now, it is fine. The house is like a living thing. It moves and settles. In the summer, the wood might groan as it gets dry, and in the winter, it might creak as it gets cold. These sounds do not scare you. They are the sounds of the house doing its job. It is adjusting itself to the weather, making sure the heavy roof stays exactly where it should be. You find yourself staring at the dark space high up in the rafters. The smoke from the hearth is hanging there in a soft grey blanket. It moves very slowly, swirling in circles. It is very peaceful to watch. You feel a sense of reflection. You think about how many people have stood in this exact spot. Your grandfather stood here, and his father before him. The house is old, but it is still good. It has kept your family safe through many blizzards and many long, dark nights. You feel small compared to the house, but you also feel very important. You are the one who is keeping the fire going tonight. You are the one who is looking after the animals. You are part of the story of this house. The house is quiet, but it is not a dead silence. It is a thick silence. It is the sound of a lot of weight being held up by strong wood. It is the sound of the thatch soaking up the dampness of the night. You can feel the mass of the building all around you. It feels like being inside a warm cave. Even though you know the snow is falling outside and the wind is trying to find a way in, you know it won't succeed. The oak is too strong. The trenails are too tight. The thatch is too thick. You take a long, slow breath. The air is cool near the floor, but warm near your head. You can feel the balance of the house. It is a place of order in a world that can be very wild. Outside, the forest is messy and dangerous, but here, everything has a place. The fire is in the center. The animals are in their stalls. The beds are in the corner. The house is a little square of safety, carved out of the big, cold dark. You walk back toward the hearth, the little flame of your candle dancing. You see the shadow of your own hand on the wall, and it looks huge. It reminds you that even though you are just a person, you have the power to make this space warm and bright. You are the watchman of this little world. You put the tallow dip down on a flat stone and prepare to look at the fire. The bones of the house are strong, and now it is time to make sure the heart of the house, the fire, is ready for the long hours of the night shift. You move toward the very center of the longhouse. This is where the heart of the home lives. In the Middle Ages, the fire was not tucked away in a wall or hidden inside a stove. It lived right in the middle of the room, on a large, flat piece of stone. This stone is called the hearth. It is the most important part of the house because it gives the light that lets you see and the heat that keeps you alive. Without this little circle of orange and gold, the winter would be too strong to fight. You kneel down on the floor. The straw is thin here, near the hearth, so it does not catch fire. You can feel the hard, dry earth beneath your knees. The earth has been baked by the fire for many years, making it as solid as a brick. You reach out your hands toward the coals. They are a deep, glowing red, like the embers of a sunset that has been caught and brought inside. Even though the fire is small right now, you can feel the heat immediately. It is a dry, tingly heat that makes the skin on your hands feel tight. You look at the fuel that is burning. Tonight you are using peat. This is a simple historical fact. In many places where big trees were hard to find, people used peat for their fires. Peat is like thick, dried mud from the wet bogs near the village. You cut it into blocks and let it dry in the summer sun until it is as hard as a piece of wood. It doesn't burn with big, bright flames like oak or ash. Instead, it glows with a steady, low light and gives off a very thick, blue smoke. The smell is rich and earthy, a bit like the smell of the ground after a heavy rain, mixed with a sweetness like dried grass. You use a small iron poker to move the peat blocks around. You want to make sure there is enough air getting to the center so the fire does not go out. As you move the blocks, a few bright sparks fly up into the air. They dance for a second, swirling in the rising heat, before they turn black and vanish into the smoke. You watch them go. It is very peaceful to watch the way the light moves. The fire is never still. It is always shifting, changing from bright orange to soft yellow to deep dark red. There is a specific tool sitting next to the hearth that you use every night. It is a curfew. That word comes from the French words couvre-feu, which simply means cover fire. A curfew is a big, bowl-shaped piece of metal with holes in it. In a few hours, when it is time for the whole house to sleep, you will place this metal bowl over the fire. It doesn't put the fire out. Instead, it protects the coals. It stops a stray spark from jumping onto the straw floor while you sleep, and it keeps the coals warm so that in the morning you can just blow on them and the fire will wake up again. Keeping the fire alive is your main job on the night shift. If the fire dies, the house gets cold very fast, and it is very hard to start a new fire with just a spark and a piece of flint. You sit back on your heels and let your eyes follow the smoke. Because there is no chimney, the smoke does not leave the house in a straight line. It rises up from the hearth in a lazy grey column. When it reaches the middle of the room, it starts to spread out. It forms a soft, thin blanket of haze that hangs just above your head. This smoke is actually a good friend. It has a job to do. It travels up into the thick thatch of the roof and kills any bugs that might try to live in the straw. It also keeps the wood of the roof beams dry so they do not rot in the damp winter air. The smoke also helps with the food. You look up and see several long strips of salted pork and some rings of dried onions hanging from the rafters. The smoke swirls around them, giving them a dark, rich color and a flavor that will last all through the winter. This is how you keep food safe to eat when there are no fresh plants growing in the frozen ground. The fire is not just for warmth. It is a tool for preserving your life. There is a moment of deep silence now. The wind outside has stopped for a minute. You can hear the fire singing. It is a low, hissing sound as the last bit of moisture leaves a block of peat. It sounds like a tiny stream of water flowing over stones. You listen to the rhythmic breathing of the animals in the dark behind you. The sound of the fire and the sound of the animals blend together into one peaceful hum. You feel a sense of reflection. You think about how this fire is the same as the fires your ancestors sat around hundreds of years ago. It is a small light in a very big, dark world. It makes the world feel smaller and more manageable. The light from the hearth does funny things to the walls of the longhouse. It makes the shadows of the wooden posts look like giant fingers reaching up toward the roof. When you move your arm, your shadow on the far wall moves too, appearing huge and slow. It makes the house feel like it is full of stories. You remember the stories your grandfather told you by this hearth stories of heroes, of strange creatures in the woods, and of the long ago times when the sun stayed in the sky for much longer. You pick up a small twig from the floor and toss it into the glowing center. It catches fire instantly, a bright little flare of white light that shows the details of the room for a second. You see the wooden bowls on the table. You see the woolen blankets piled on the benches. You see the dust dancing in the air. Then the twig burns away and the room goes back to its soft orange glow. The heat from the fire is starting to fill the living end of the house. It moves through the air in waves. You can feel it on your face, and then a moment later you feel it on your shoulders. It is a very gentle heat. It is not like the harsh heat of the big furnace. It is a living heat that comes from the earth itself. You take a deep breath of the smoky air. Some people might find it hard to breathe, but you are used to it. To you, the smoke smells like dinner, like safety, and like the promise that you will make it through the night. You look at the iron pot hanging over the fire. It is held up by a pot hook, a long piece of metal that hangs from a wooden beam high above. The pot hook has several notches in it, so you can move the pot higher or lower. If you want the stew to boil fast, you move it down close to the coals. If you just want it to stay warm, you move it up. Tonight, the pot is high up, and you can hear a very soft bubble, bubble, bubble coming from inside. It is a comforting sound. It tells you that there is something warm and good to eat whenever you are ready. You reach out and touch the stone of the hearth. This is very hot, so you only touch it for a second. This stone will stay warm long after the flames have gone down. It acts like a battery, soaking up the heat during the evening and slowly letting it out during the night. Everything in the Longhouse has a purpose. Everything is designed to make the most of the little bit of energy you have. You feel proud of your little fire. It is not a grand or fancy thing, but it is yours. It is the golden center of your world, and as long as it is burning, the winter cannot get inside. You stand up from the hearth, your joints feeling a little stiff from kneeling on the hard earth. The warmth of the fire is at your back now, a steady, comforting weight. You turn your gaze away from the glowing orange center of the room and look toward the far end of the Longhouse. This is the dark end, the lower end. Even though the light of the tallow dip does not reach very far, you know exactly what is there. You walk slowly, your feet making a soft shushing sound as you move through the rushes. About halfway down the length of the building, you come to a stop. In front of you is a low wall. It is not very high, it only comes up to your waist. It is made of the same materials as the rest of the house, heavy timber posts and a few layers of flat stones piled on top of each other. This wall is the line between the world of the family and the world of the animals. In your mind, you think of it as the Longhouse line. On this side, you have your fire, your table, and your beds. On the other side, just a few feet away, are the stalls where the livestock sleep. This layout is a very important historical fact about your life. This building is what historians call a byre dwelling. A byre is just an old word for a cowshed. Building a house where the people and the animals live under one single roof was not an accident. It was a clever plan for survival. By keeping the animals inside, you make sure that no one can steal them in the middle of the night and no wolves can get to them. But most importantly, you are using the animals as a living heater. A large cow or a horse produces a massive amount of body heat. Because there is only this low wall between you, that heat does not stay in the barn. It floats over the wall and helps keep the whole house from freezing. You lean your elbows on the top of the wall. The stone is cool, but the air coming from the other side is warm and moist. It smells strongly of the animals, a rich, heavy scent of damp fur and digested grass. To you, this is a good smell. It is the smell of wealth. A person who has a barn full of healthy animals is a person who will not go hungry. You look over the edge into the shadows. You can see the dark shapes of the cows. They are standing quietly, their heads low. They are tethered to the wall with thick ropes made of twisted hemp. You look closely at the tethering post. This is a specific microhistory detail of your home. It is a sturdy wooden pole buried deep into the floor with a smooth iron ring fixed into it. The ring has been polished by years of the rope rubbing against it, making it shine like silver in the dim light. You reach out and touch the rope. It is rough and a bit prickly, but it is strong enough to hold a 1,000-pound ox. Each animal has its own place, its own stall. They know where they belong, and they seem content to be out of the wind. The silence here is different from the silence by the fire. Here, the silence is filled with small rhythmic noises. You can hear the crunch, crunch, crunch of a cow chewing on a mouthful of dry hay. You can hear the thump of a tail hitting a wooden post. And most of all, you hear the breathing. It is a very deep, slow sound. Ha, 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 ha. It sounds like the earth itself is breathing. When many animals breathe together like this, the sound fills the room. It is very steady, like a giant heart beating in the corner of the house. It makes you feel very calm. You stand there for a long moment of reflection. You think about how strange it might seem to someone from another time to sleep so close to a cow. But to you, it feels perfectly natural. These animals are part of your family. You know the name of every cow and the personality of every sheep. You were there when the calves were born in the spring, and you were the one who led them to the high pastures when the grass was green. Now, in the dead of winter, you are all huddled together in this one big wooden shell. You protect them from the cold, and in return, they provide the heat that keeps you from shivering in your bed. The low wall is also a place where you keep things. You look down and see a besom leaning against the stones. A besom is a simple broom made from a bundle of birch twigs tied to a long wooden handle. You use it every morning to sweep the stray straw back toward the animals. You like the feel of the wooden handle. It is worn smooth by your hands. It is a simple tool, but it is part of the daily rhythm of the night shift. Everything must be kept in order. Even in a house shared with animals, there is a place for everything. You look over the wall again and see a thin mist rising from the back of the largest cow. The air is cold enough that you can actually see the heat leaving her body. It looks like steam rising from a hot loaf of bread. This heat rises up to the rafters and then spreads out, mixing with the smoke from your fire. It creates a pocket of warmth that stays trapped under the thick thatch of the roof. Without these animals, you would have to burn twice as much wood to stay warm. The cows are doing a job just by standing there. They are your silent partners in the struggle against the winter. You feel a sense of connection to the world around you. In the city, people might live in stone houses with many rooms, but here, life is simple and close. There is no distance between you and the things you need to survive. Your food is in the rafters, your water is in the bucket by the door, and your warmth is standing right there on the other side of the wall. It is a very honest way to live. You don't have much, but what you have is real and solid. The wind gives a sudden loud whoosh against the side of the house. You feel a tiny vibration in the wall under your elbows. The animals hear it too. One of the younger heifers lets out a low, soft moo. It is not a sound of fear, just a comment on the weather. You reach over the wall and pat her on the neck. Her fur is thick and coarse, designed to keep her warm in the fields, but here it feels soft. You can feel the powerful muscles beneath her skin. She is a strong, living thing, and her presence makes the Longhouse feel full and safe. You turn your head and look back toward the hearth. From here the fire looks like a small bright eye watching you from the dark. The light flickers, sending long shadows of the tethering posts dancing across the ceiling. You realize that the low wall is not just a barrier, it is a bridge. It keeps the mess of the barn away from your bed, but it lets the life and the heat flow through. It is the perfect design for a world where every bit of energy matters. You take one last look at the animals. They are settling down for the night, their heavy bodies sinking into the thick beds of straw. The sound of chewing slows down as they drift off into their own kind of sleep. You feel the warmth of their breath against your face one more time, a moist and earthy greeting. It is time for you to move back toward the fire, but you leave with a feeling of peace. The night shift is going well. The house is full of life, and the low wall is doing its job, keeping your world organized and your heart warm. You step over the low wall and into the area where the animals sleep. The air here is even warmer than it was by the fire. It is a heavy, thick warmth that feels like a soft blanket wrapped around your body. This is because of the animals. Each one of them is like a small stove, burning the hay they ate during the day to create heat. You walk toward the largest shape in the corner. This is your big brown cow. She is the most important member of the house tonight. Without her, the winter would feel much longer and much colder. You reach out and place your hand on her side. Her fur is thick and a bit rough, the color of dark chocolate or a piece of polished wood. Beneath that fur, you can feel her skin. It is incredibly hot. It is much warmer than a person's skin. This is a simple historical fact. A cow's body is naturally warmer than yours. Because she is so big, she holds a massive amount of heat inside her. In the Middle Ages, your animals were often the most valuable things you owned. A house could be built again with mud and straw, but a good cow took years to grow. She gave you milk, she gave you calves, and on nights like this, she gave you the heat you needed to survive. You move closer to her head. She turns to look at you with her large dark eyes. They are the color of wet stones, and they look very calm. She knows you. She knows the sound of your boots and the smell of your wool tunic. She lets out a long, slow breath. It comes out of her nose in two little clouds of steam that vanish into the air. You can feel the moisture of her breath on your hand. It is warm and smells like the dried summer grass she has been chewing. You feel a deep sense of connection to her. You are her guardian, making sure she is safe from the wolves and the snow, and she is your heater, keeping the frost away from your bed. You look down at her neck and see a specific detail. Around her neck is a cow tie. This is a micro-history detail of your daily life. It is a collar made of a thick piece of leather held together with a toggle. A toggle is just a small, smooth piece of wood shaped like a little barrel. You pushed it through a loop in the leather to keep the collar tight. This collar is attached to a rope made of twisted hazel branches. Hazel is a very clever wood to use because when it is young and green, you can twist it like a piece of string. But when it dries, it becomes as hard and strong as iron. This tie keeps her in a stall so she does not wander over to the fire or step on the smaller sheep. You lean your shoulder against her side. This is a moment of atmospheric silence and reflection. You close your eyes for a second. The world outside is a place of white snow and black shadows, but here, pressed against the warm side of the cow, you feel completely safe. You can hear the blizzard hitting the thick walls of the longhouse. The wind howls and screams, trying to find a gap in the mud and straw. But inside, it is quiet. The only sound is the rhythmic thump-thump of the cow's heart. It is a slow, steady beat. It reminds you that life is strong, even in the middle of a frozen world. You feel the rise and fall of her ribs as she breathes. It's like being on a boat in a very calm sea. You think about how much heat this one animal creates. If you had a modern heater, you would have to plug it into a wall. But your cow is a living heater. She takes the energy from the grass and turns it into warmth. Scientists today might call this metabolism, but to you, it is just the magic of the animal. She is a giant engine of heat. Because she is standing right next to the low wall where you will soon sleep, her heat will travel through the air and keep your blankets warm. You do not need to cut down as many trees for firewood because the cow does the work for you. She is a very clever way to save energy. The cow shifts her weight, her hooves making a dull clink against the stones of the floor. You reach down and check her bedding. You have given her a very thick layer of dry straw. This is important because the straw keeps her body off the cold ground. If she stays warm, she stays healthy. And if she stays healthy, she keeps the house warm. It is a cycle of care. You move a bit of the straw with your boot, making sure it is piled high around her legs. The straw has a dusty, sweet smell that mixes with the scent of the cow. It is a very comforting smell. It smells like a job well done. You look at her wide, curved horns. They are the color of old bone with dark tips. They are beautiful, but they are also a reminder of how powerful she is. Even though she is gentle with you, she is a big animal. She could easily knock down a wall if she wanted to, but she stays here in her stall, content and quiet. She seems to like the shelter of the longhouse just as much as you do. Out in the field, she would have to stand with her back to the wind, shivering in the dark. Here she is part of the family circle. The light from the hearth far away casts a long shadow of the cow against the wall. The shadow is huge, reaching all the way up to the smoky rafters. It looks like a guardian spirit watching over the house. You feel a sense of pride. You are the history watchman, the one who looks after the night. You make sure the fire stays in the hearth and the animals stay in their stalls. It is a quiet, slow kind of work, but it is the most important work in the world during the winter. You are the one who keeps the spark of life going while the world is frozen. You give the cow one last pat on her neck. Her skin is twitching slightly, a natural way she keeps flies away in the summer, but now it is just a sign that she is awake and relaxed. You can feel the heat radiating off her in waves. It is a very steady heat. Unlike the fire, which gets hot and then cools down as the wood burns away, the cow stays the same temperature all night long. She is your constant, living furnace. As you prepare to move back to the living side of the house, you feel thankful for her. You know that no matter how hard the wind blows tonight, the big brown cow will keep the cold at bay. You step back toward the low wall, leaving the warmth of the animal area for a moment. The air feels slightly cooler, but the heat from the cow follows you. It is a soft, invisible presence in the room. You look back at her one more time. She has put her head down now, resting it on the straw. She is ready for sleep. You realize that your life is tied to hers. You're both part of the same story, huddled together in this long wooden house, waiting for the light of the morning to return. The night shift continues, and with the big brown cow on duty, you know you will be warm enough to dream. You settle back onto the living side of the house, but you do not go far from the low wall. You find a spot where you can sit on a low wooden bench, leaning your back against one of the main oak posts. From here, you can see the whole length of the longhouse. The light from the hearth is just a soft, flickering pulse now, but the sounds of the house are very clear. The most steady sound, the one that fills the air like a hum, is the sound of the cows chewing. Cows have a very special way of eating. They do not just swallow their food and forget about it. Because they eat tough, dry hay, their bodies have to work very hard to get the energy out. This is a simple historical fact. Cows have 4 parts to their stomachs. They swallow the hay, and then later, when they are resting in the warm dark of the longhouse, they bring a little bit of it back up into their mouths to chew it again. This is called chewing the cud. In the Middle Ages, this sound was the sound of a peaceful home. It meant the animals were not stressed or hungry. It meant they were doing the slow, quiet work of making milk and heat for the family. The sound is very rhythmic. Grind, 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 swallow. Then there is a tiny pause and it starts again. Grind, grind, swallow. It is a very heavy, wet sound. Because the longhouse is so quiet, and because the wooden beams and the thick thatch absorb the sharp noises of the wind, the sound of the chewing seems to grow larger. It becomes the heartbeat of the room. You find your own breathing starting to match the rhythm of the cows. It is very hypnotic. It makes your eyelids feel heavy and your muscles feel like they are turning into soft lead. You look down at your feet. You are wearing turn shoes. This is a specific microhistory detail of your winter life. These shoes are made of a single piece of thick leather. They are called turn shoes because of the cover way they are made. The shoemaker sews them inside out using a strong thread made of linen soaked in beeswax. Once the sewing is done, he pulls the whole shoe through itself, turning it right side out so the seams are on the inside. This protects the thread from the sharp ice and the rough stones of the path. They are not very thick, so you have stuffed them with dry moss and extra wool to keep your toes from freezing. You move your feet in the straw. The straw makes a soft crinkling noise. You reflect on how lucky you are to be here. You think about the night shift again. In the summer, the night shift is about the stars and the long walk home from the fields. But in the winter, the night shift is about listening. You listen to the fire to make sure it doesn't pop a coal onto the floor. You listen to the roof to make sure the wind isn't tearing the thatch. And most of all, you listen to the animals. If a cow stops chewing, it might mean she is sick or scared. As long as you hear that steady grind, grind, you know everything is okay. There is a moment of deep silence between the gusts of wind. In this silence, the sound of the chewing feels like a secret conversation. It is as if the animals are telling the house that they are content. You feel a sense of safety that is hard to describe. You are in a building made of earth and wood, surrounded by living creatures that are much bigger and stronger than you. They could be scary, but they are not. They are your companions. You provide them with the hay you spent all summer cutting and drying, and they provide you with this calming, rhythmic song of survival. The chewing is not the only sound. Sometimes a sheep will let out a small, soft baa in its sleep. Sheep are much quieter than cows. They huddle together in a tight circle near the far wall. Their wool is so thick that they almost look like a cloud that has fallen onto the floor. When they move, it is just a soft rustle, like the sound of dry leaves blowing across a pavement. But even their small movements add to the feeling of life in the house. The longhouse is never truly still. It is a place of constant, gentle motion. You lean your head back against the oak post. The wood is cold, but it feels solid and dependable. You watch the way the shadows of the cows' heads move on the wall as they chew. Their jaws move from side to side in a slow circle. It is a very old movement. Animals have been chewing like this for thousands of years, long before this house was built. It makes you feel connected to the very beginning of time. You are part of a long line of people who have sat in the dark, listening to their livestock and waiting for the sun. The air in the house is starting to feel very drowsy. The combination of the warmth, the smell of the hay, and the rhythmic sound of the chewing is like a medicine for a tired brain. You don't have to think about the taxes you owe the Lord, or the hole in your garden fence, or the long walk you have to take tomorrow. All of those things are far away. Right now, there is only the grind, 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 and the feeling of the heavy wool tunic on your chest. You take a moment to reflect on the hay itself. You call it sweet hay because when it is dried properly, it smells like a summer meadow. It is full of dried flowers, clover, and buttercups, and daisies that were caught by the scythe in July. When the cows chew it, they are releasing the smell of the summer back into the winter house. It is like a tiny piece of July is hidden inside every mouthful of hay. You can smell it now, a faint sweet scent that cuts through the heavy smell of the smoke. It is a beautiful irony. The cows eat the summer to keep the winter at bay. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the simple things. A dry roof, a glowing coal, a full barn. In the Middle Ages, these were not small things. They were everything. If you had these things, you were a rich man, no matter how much gold you had in your pocket. You close your eyes and let the sound of the cows wash over you. It feels like a protective shield. The blizzard can scream all it wants, but it cannot break the rhythm of the Longhouse. You reach out and touch the edge of the straw bedding near your feet. It is dry and warm. You realize that you are starting to drift off. The night shift is a quiet watch, and the animals are doing most of the work now. Their bodies are generating the heat, and their chewing is providing the music. You are just the witness. You are the one who stays awake just long enough to make sure the world is still turning. You take one last deep breath of the hay-scented air and listen to that steady, grinding sound. It is the sound of life continuing, one mouthful at a time. You stand up and walk closer to the barn end of the house, where the smell is the strongest. To some, the smell of a barn might seem like something you would want to push away, but in the heart of winter, the smell of the barn is the smell of survival. It is a very complex scent, built in layers like the thatch on the roof. The base of the smell is the earth itself. The floor is made of hard-packed clay, and even under the straw, it has a deep, damp, mushroom-like scent that reminds you the ground is still there, waiting for the spring. On top of that earthy base is the smell of the hay. This is the sweet hay you gathered when the sun was high and hot in the sky. When hay is dried correctly, it holds onto the scent of the flowers and the grasses. As the animals move and chew, they break the dried stalks, and a new wave of that sweetness fills the Longhouse. It smells like clover and sun-warmed dust. It is a light, airy smell that dances through the heavier air of the house. It is a reminder that the world will be green again, even though everything outside is currently white and grey. Then there is the smell of the animals themselves. It is a musk, a thick, warm scent of living fur and skin. Each animal has a slightly different smell. The cows have a heavy, milky scent that feels very solid. The sheep have a greasier smell, like the lanolin oil in their wool, which smells a bit like old wood and rain. The goats have a sharp, peppery scent that pricks at your nose. When you mix all these together with the heat they are making, the air becomes very dense. It is not a bad smell. It is a rich one. It is the smell of life being squeezed together into a small space to keep the cold out. In the Middle Ages, people did not think about smells the same way we do today. They believed that certain smells could actually tell you about the health of your home. A clean barn smell, one that was mostly hay and healthy animals, meant that the night shift was going well. If the smell turned sour or bitter, it was a warning that something was wrong. You take a long, slow sniff of the air. It is perfect. It is warm, sweet, and heavy. It feels like a physical thing, a thick curtain that protects you from the thin, freezing air of the outside world. You look down and see a scuttle. This is a specific microhistory detail. A scuttle is a small wooden basket or tray with a handle, used for carrying grain or moving small amounts of fodder. It is made of woven willow branches, similar to the walls of the house, but much finer. You use it to bring a little extra treat of dried peas to the oldest cow. As you move the scuttle, the smell of the dried peas dusty and plain adds another tiny layer to the scent of the room. The cow nudges the scuttle with her nose, her warm breath puffing against your hand. You pause for a moment of reflection. The smell of the house is like a map of your year. The hay reminds you of the summer. The peat smoke reminds you of the autumn when you cut the fuel. The scent of the animals reminds you of the spring when the new life began. In this one room, all the seasons are living together. You feel a deep sense of calm. The world outside is a place of nothing, just white snow and silence. But here, the air is full of information. It tells you that your family is safe, your food is ready, and your animals are content. There is also the smell of the daub on the walls. Because the house is warm, the mud and straw in the walls give off a faint, baked bread smell. It is very subtle, but it is there. It makes the house feel like it is part of the earth, a cave that has been made comfortable. You lean your head against the wall and breathe in. You can almost smell the rain that fell 2 years ago when this mud was first mixed. It is a very grounding feeling. It reminds you that you are part of a long cycle of nature. The wind hits the side of the house again, a sudden thump that makes the timbers groan. For a second, a tiny draft of freezing air finds a gap near the door. It smells of ice and nothingness. It is a sharp, scary smell that reminds you how dangerous the winter is. But almost immediately, the heavy, warm smell of the Longhouse pushes it back. The musk of the cows and the sweetness of the hay are like a wall. They are stronger than the winter. The draft vanishes and the warm, earthy scent returns. You think about the night shift as a sentry duty of the senses. You are not just watching for fire or listening for wolves. You are smelling the health of your world. As long as the air stays thick and sweet, you know you're winning the battle against the frost. You feel the heavy wool of your tunic which has now soaked up all these smells. When you leave the house tomorrow, you will carry the scent of the Longhouse with you. It will be like a badge of warmth that you wear in the cold. You walk back toward the fire, but the smell of the barn follows you. It stays in your hair and on your skin. It is a comforting companion. You look at the glowing coals and realize that the smells of the fire, the smoke, and the ash, and the smells of the barn are merging. They create one single, unified scent that means home. It is a scent that no king in a cold stone castle could ever have. It is the special prize of the peasant in his longhouse. The silence returns, and you let yourself sink into it. The smells are so familiar that you almost stop noticing them, but they are still there, working on your brain to make you feel sleepy and safe. You take one last deep breath, filling your lungs with the warmth of the animals and the memory of the summer grass. It is the best medicine for a long winter night. You are ready to keep the watch, surrounded by the invisible shield of the Longhouse's breath. You move back to the higher ground of the Longhouse, the living side where your family gathers. It is time to prepare for the deepest part of the night. You look down at the floor near the low wall. This is where you will sleep tonight. You do not have a soft bed with a mattress and springs like people might have in the future. Your bed is something you build every single evening. You reach over to a pile of fresh golden straw that you brought in before the sun went down. In the Middle Ages, straw was not just for animals, it was the foundation of comfort for everyone. You start by clearing a space on the floor. You move the old, crushed rushes aside with your boots, making a clean square of earth. Then, you begin to spread the fresh straw. You do not just throw it down. You lay it out carefully, making it thick and springy. You want it to be at least as deep as your hand is wide. This straw acts like a layer of trapped air between you and the cold ground. It is a very clever way to keep your body heat from being sucked away by the frozen dirt. The straw is very dry and makes a loud, happy crinkle as you move it. It feels a bit prickly, but through your thick wool clothes, it just feels firm. This is a moment of reflection. You think about how every piece of this straw was once a tall green stalk of grain waving in the summer breeze. Now it is doing its final job, keeping you warm. You pat it down with your hands, making a little nest. You build at the edges a bit higher than the middle, so you won't roll out during the night. A specific tool you use for this job is a pallet fork. This is a small two-pronged wooden tool used to move and fluff the bedding. It is made from a single branch of ashwood that grew into a natural Y shape. You use it to make sure the straw is even, and that there are no lumps of mud or stones hidden inside. The wood of the fork is very smooth from years of use, and it feels good in your hands. It is a simple tool, but it makes your bed feel much more like a place of rest. Once the straw is ready, you go to a large wooden chest near the wall. This chest is made of heavy oak planks and has a strong iron lock. Inside are the family's most precious winter things, the blankets. You pull out a large, heavy blanket made of wadmal. Wadmal is a historical type of fabric that is very special. It is a wool cloth that has been washed and beaten until the fibers are all tangled together. This makes it almost waterproof and very, very thick. It is a dull grey colour, but it is the warmest thing you own. It feels heavy in your arms, like a shield against the dark. You lay the wadmal blanket over the straw. This is your bottom sheet. It stops the straw from poking through your clothes while you sleep. Then you get the coverlet, which is another thick woolen blanket, often dyed with the blue of the woad plant or the red of the madder root. You pile these on top of your nest. You look at your bed and feel a sense of pride. It looks cozy and safe. It is positioned perfectly just a few feet away from the low wall. This means the heat from the big brown cow can drift right over the stones and settle onto your blankets. There is a moment of atmospheric silence as you stand over your finished bed. The fire is very low now, just a tiny heartbeat of light in the center of the room. The only sound is the rustle of the straw as it settles under the weight of the blankets. You feel the immense weight of the night pressing down on the house. Outside, the snow is piling up against the walls, burial deep. But here, in your little straw nest, you have created a world where the cold cannot win. You think about the night shift and how it changes at this hour. The work of doing things, gathering wood, feeding animals, mending tools is finished. Now the work is just existing. Your job is to stay warm and to let your body rest so you can do it all again tomorrow. The straw bed is your station. It is where you will wait for the sun. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the straw. It is such a simple thing, something that most people today would think of as rubbish, but to you, It is the difference between a night of shivering and a night of peaceful dreams. You sit down on the edge of your nest. The straw compresses under you with a long, slow sigh. It feels wonderful. The floor is hard, but the straw makes it feel soft and supportive. You can feel the warmth of the fire on your face and the warmth of the cows on your back. You are caught between two fires, one made of wood and one made of life. It is the best place in the house to be. You take off your heavy outer cloak and fold it up to use as a pillow. It smells of the outdoors and the cold, but as you lay your head on it, the smell of the house starts to take over. You are surrounded by the scent of dry grass and clean wool. You realize that your bed is not just a place to sleep. It is a piece of the summer brought inside to protect you from the winter. As you lie there for a moment before fully tucking yourself in, you listen to the rhythmic breathing of the animals again. The straw under you echoes the sound of the straw under them. You are all lying on the same material, all seeking the same comfort. You feel a sense of unity with the cows and the sheep. In the Longhouse, there is no difference between the master and the beast when it comes to the cold. You all need the straw, and you all need each other. The night shift is quiet now. The watchman is almost ready to close his eyes. You reach out and touch the edge of the low wall, feeling the rough stone. On the other side, you hear a cow give a soft, contented grunt as she settles into her own straw bed. The house is ready. The beds are made. The warmth is shared. You take one last look at the glowing hearth and then slide under the heavy wool blankets, letting the golden straw hold you close. You sit on the edge of your straw bed and begin the slow process of preparing your body for the deep cold of the night. Even though you are inside, you do not take off many clothes. In the Middle Ages, your clothes were your first and most important wall against the winter. You reach for your winter wools, the thickest garments you own. These are not like the soft, thin clothes of the future. This wool is heavy, dense, and a bit oily to the touch. This oil is called lanolin, and it comes naturally from the sheep. It is very clever because it helps keep the wool from getting soaked if you step out into the snow, and it helps the fabric hold onto the heat of your skin. You start by making sure your braids are tied tight. Braids are your linen undergarments, a bit like long shorts. They are white, or at least they were white when they were new. Over these, you wear your hose. Your hose are two separate sleeves of thick wool that cover your legs. They are not joined to the top like modern trousers. Instead, you pull them up and tie them to your linen belt with small pieces of string called points. This is a specific microhistory detail. A point is a short cord of braided wool with a small metal tip on the end to make it easy to thread through the holes. You pull the hose tight. They feel snug and warm, like a second skin made of sheep's fur. Next comes your coat. This is a long-sleeved tunic that reaches down to your knees. It is made of the thickest russet wool, woven so tightly that you can hardly see the threads. You pull it over your head, and for a second, the world is dark and smells of clean, dry wool. When your head pops through the top, you feel the weight of the fabric settle on your shoulders. It is a comforting weight. It feels like someone is giving you a very long, steady hug. You smooth the fabric down over your chest. It is a bit itchy, but you are used to that. The itchy just is a reminder that the wool is working, trapping the air and keeping you safe. You reach for your hood. This is not a part of a jacket. It is a separate piece of clothing that covers your head, neck, and shoulders. You pull it on and tuck the bottom part, the cape, under the collar of your tunic. This is a historical fact of medieval life. The hood was the most important piece of gear for the night shift. Most of your body heat escaped from your head, so by wrapping your skull in thick wool, you are keeping your internal fire burning. The hood makes the world feel smaller and quieter. It muffles the sound of the wind and the cows, making you feel like you are inside your own little warm bubble. You sit for a moment in the silence of the Longhouse, fully dressed for sleep. You reflect on the sheep that gave you this wool. You know those sheep well. You saw them being shorn in the early summer heat, and you watched your mother and sisters spin the wool into long grey threads. Every stitch in your clothes was done by someone who cares about you. This makes the warmth feel even better. It is not just heat from a fire. It is the warmth of your family's hard work. You feel a deep sense of security. You are wrapped in the protection of your own labor and the gifts of the land. You look at your hands. They are rough and calloused from a lifetime of work, but right now they are warm. You tuck them into your sleeves, pulling the wool down over your knuckles. You won't wear gloves tonight because you need your fingers to be free just in case the fire needs tending or an animal gets restless. But as long as you stay under the blankets, the wool will do its job. It is a perfect material. It breathes so you don't get too sweaty. but it holds onto the warmth so you don't get cold. There is a moment of atmospheric reflection as you look at the textures of your clothes in the dim firelight. The wool has little bits of dried grass and hair caught in the weave. It isn't perfect, but it is honest. It tells the story of your life. It tells of the fields, the animals, and the long hours spent by the hearth. You feel a sense of pride in these clothes. They are not fancy, but they are strong. They have seen you through 3 winters already, and with a bit of mending, they will see you through 3 more. You reach down and check your leg wraps. These are long strips of wool that you wind around your ankles and chins over your hose. They add an extra layer of warmth where the cold air usually crawls along the floor. You pull them tight and tuck the ends in. Now from your toes to your chin, you're covered in a thick layer of protection. You feel like a knight putting on his armor, but instead of steel to fight enemies, you're putting on wool to fight the frost. The Longhouse is getting darker now. The fire is just a faint orange glow, and the shadows are growing long and deep. You can feel the cold air trying to press into the room, but it stops at the edge of your woolen tunic. You are a warm island in a cold sea. You take a slow breath, and the smell of the wool oily, earthy, and clean fills your nose. It is a very sleepy smell. It reminds you of being a child, curled up against your mother's cloak while she told stories of the old days. You realize that the night shift is not just about staying awake, it is about staying ready. By keeping your clothes on, you are ready to jump up if a cow gets stuck or if the wind blows a shutter open. But for now, you are just ready to rest. You feel the heavy wool pressing against your skin, and it makes your heart slow down. Your body knows that it is safe to sleep. The wool will hold the heat, the straw will hold your weight, and the animals will hold the cold at bay. You give your sleeves one last tug to make sure they are pulled down far. You feel very solid and very heavy. You are ready to disappear into your blankets. You take one last look at the room, seeing the dark shapes of the beams and the soft glow of the hearth. Everything is as it should be. The history watchman is dressed and ready. You lean back into the straw, feeling the layers of wool adjust to your movement. You are warm, you are safe, and the winter night can do you no harm. You feel a soft rumble in your stomach. It is time for the final meal of the day. In the Middle Ages, the evening meal was not a fancy affair with many plates. It was a simple, one-pot meal that had been simmering over the hearth all afternoon. You move toward the fire and reach for your wooden bowl. This bowl is your own. It was carved from a single piece of beechwood. It is smooth and warm to the touch, and it has a deep grain that looks like a map of a tiny forest. You use a large wooden ladle to scoop a thick, steaming portion of pottage into your bowl. Pottage is a simple historical fact of peasant life. It is a thick stew made of whatever you have in the garden and the storehouse. Tonight, it is made of grey peas, leeks, and a bit of cabbage. To make it thicker, your mother added some oats and a handful of herbs that were dried during the autumn. There is no meat in it tonight. Meat is for special feast days, but the pottage is rich and filling. It smells of onions and earth. As you hold the bowl in your hands, the wood soaks up the heat, warming your palms through your woolen sleeves. You sit back on your straw nest and take your first spoonful. You use a spoon made of cow horn. It is translucent, meaning you can almost see the light through it, and it feels very light in your hand. This is a specific microhistory detail. Horn spoons were very common because they were tough and did not get as hot as metal spoons. The pottage is thick, almost like a porridge. It tastes of the garden sweet from the leeks and hearty from the peas. As you swallow, you feel a wave of warmth travel down your throat and settle in your belly. It feels like you are putting a warm coal inside your body to help keep you going through the night. There is a moment of atmospheric silence as you eat. You listen to the sounds of the other people in the house doing the same. You hear the clink of a spoon against a bowl and the soft sound of someone blowing on their food to cool it down. This is the quietest time of the evening. Everyone is focused on the warmth and the taste of the meal. You look at the steam rising from your bowl. It swirls in the dim light, dancing toward the smoky rafters. It reminds you that even the simplest things, like a bowl of peas and leeks, are a great gift when the world outside is frozen. You reflect on where this food came from. You remember planting the leeks in the mud of the early spring. You remember the summer sun beating down on your back as you weeded the pea patches. This pottage is the result of a whole year of work. It is the sun and the rain and the soil all cooked together in a black iron pot. You feel a deep sense of connection to the land. You are not just eating food, you are eating the energy of the seasons. It makes you feel strong. It makes you feel like you belong to this place, and this place belongs to you. The pottage is also very important for your night shift duty. Digging into a warm meal helps your body stay active while you sleep. As your stomach works to break down the oats and the peas, it creates its own tiny bit of heat. It is like adding a fresh log to your internal fire. You make sure to scrape every last bit of the stew from the bottom of the bowl. You do not waste anything. In the winter, every single pea is precious. Every bite is a step toward the spring. You take a piece of dark, heavy rye bread from a basket and use it to wipe the bowl clean. The bread is tough and a bit sour, but it is very filling. It has been baked in the communal oven in the village, and it smells of grain and wood smoke. As you chew the bread, you look toward the cows. They are still chewing their own meal of hay. You feel a strange sense of companionship. You are both eating the grass of the summer to stay alive in the winter. The only difference is that your grass has been turned into leeks and oats, and their grass is still in the form of dried stalks. The warmth from the meal starts to spread to your toes. You feel a bit more relaxed now. The hunger that was nipping at you like the cold wind has been chased away. You set your empty bowl and spoon down on a small wooden stool. Tomorrow morning you will rinse them with a bit of water, but for now they are fine. The night shift is easier when your belly is full. You feel a sense of peace that only comes from a warm meal and a safe roof. You look at the iron pot still hanging over the hearth. There is a little bit left in the bottom, which will stay warm for hours. If you wake up in the middle of the night feeling cold, you can have another spoonful. The pottage is like a battery of life waiting for you. You take a slow, deep breath. The air in the house is heavy with the smell of the stew, the smoke, and the animals. It is a busy smell, but it is a good one. It is the smell of a house that is full of life and preparation. You lean back into the straw, feeling the weight of the wool blankets on your legs. The meal was the last piece of the puzzle. You are dressed in your winter wools, you are tucked into your straw nest, and now you are full of warm food. The winter has no way to get to you tonight. You are like a seed buried deep in the ground, waiting for the thaw. You feel very small in the vast dark night, but you also feel very solid. The wind gives a long, low moan outside, but you barely hear it. You are listening to the internal sounds of the house instead. The soft thump of the pot settling on its hook, the crack of a cooling coal, and the steady breathing of your family. The night shift is turning into a time of deep rest. You have done your work and the land has provided. You close your eyes for a second, tasting the lingering sweetness of the leeks on your tongue. Everything is ready. The watch is quiet and the pottage has done its job. The world outside has changed. You can no longer hear the individual sounds of the village, the distant bark of a dog, or the creak of a neighbor's gate. All of that has been drowned out by a great white noise. The blizzard has arrived in full force. It is not just a wind, it is a wall of air that slams into the side of the longhouse. You can feel the vibration in the heavy oak posts. The night shift has become a time of testing. The storm is trying to find a way in. It pushes against the thick thatch of the roof and searches for any tiny crack in the wattle and daubed walls. The sound is a long, low howl. It sounds like a hungry animal circling the house, looking for a gap. Sometimes the wind hits a corner of the building and makes a high whistling scream. In the Middle Ages, people often thought the wind was the voice of spirits or the wild hunt riding across the sky. To you, lying in your warm straw, it just sounds like the power of nature. You are thankful for every layer of mud your father smeared onto the walls. You are thankful for the massive weight of the roof. Without this building, the wind would strip the heat from your body in minutes. You lie very still, listening. This is a moment of reflection. You think about the night shift workers who might still be out there. Maybe a shepherd who was caught far from the village, huddling under a stone wall with his flock. You feel a deep pity for anyone who does not have a thick door between them and this wind. The blizzard is a reminder that the world is a wild and dangerous place. It does not care if you are warm or cold. It just moves according to its own rules. This makes the small circle of your home feel even more precious. It is a tiny bubble of calm in the middle of a giant storm. You look toward the door, even though it is barred with a heavy piece of oak. You can see a tiny bit of white dust swirling on the floor beneath it. It is snow. The wind is so strong that it is blowing the frozen crystals through the tiny gap under the doorsill. The snow looks like tiny, sparkling diamonds in the dim light of the hearth. You watch it for a moment. It doesn't melt right away because the air near the floor is the coldest part of the room. This is a specific microhistory detail. The threshold of the house is the front line of the battle. You will have to sweep that snow away in the morning. But for now, it is just a sign of how hard the winter is knocking. The animals feel the storm too. They have stopped chewing their cud for a moment. You hear the big brown cow shift her weight, her hooves making a dull thud on the straw. One of the sheep lets out a soft, worried sound. You can hear them huddling closer together. Their animal instincts tell them that the world outside is hostile. But they also know that they are safe. They feel the solid walls and the lack of a draft. They settle back down, and soon the rhythmic chewing starts again. The night shift in the barn continues, undisturbed by the screaming wind. The historical fact of the matter is that these blizzards could last for days. Sometimes the snow would pile up so high that it would cover the windows and even reach halfway up the roof. People would be snowed in, unable to open the door. This sounds scary, but it was actually a very cozy time. As long as you had enough hay for the cows and enough pottage in the pot, you could just wait. The snow acting as an extra layer of insulation would make the house even warmer. You are safe in your wooden cocoon. You pull your wool blanket up to your chin. The wind whooshes over the top of the house. Because the roof is shaped like a triangle, the wind doesn't hit it flat. It slides up and over, just like water flows over a smooth stone in a river. This is why the Longhouse has lasted for so many years. It was built to work with the wind, not just against it. You feel the strength of the building in your bones. It doesn't shake, it just hums. It is a very deep, vibrating hum that you can feel in the ground under your straw bed. There is a moment of silence in the storm, a lull. In this quiet, you hear the snow hitting the thatch. It makes a soft hissing sound, like sand being thrown against a curtain. Millions of tiny ice flakes are landing on the straw. They fill the gaps between the reeds, making the roof even more solid. It is a strange thought. The thing that is trying to freeze you is also helping to seal your house. Nature has a way of balancing itself. You let out a long breath and feel your muscles relax. The storm is loud, but it is outside. You think about the simple explanation of why you are so comfortable. It is because of mass. The thick walls and the heavy roof take a long time to get cold. Even if the fire went out, the house would stay warm for hours because the stones and the mud have soaked up the heat from the day. You are living inside a giant battery of warmth. The blizzard is like a cold wave hitting a hot stone. It will take a lot more than one night of wind to chill the heart of this Longhouse. The light from the fire is very low now, and the room is full of shadows. The blizzard makes the shadows move. As the wind pushes against the house, the smoke from the hearth swirls in different patterns. It looks like ghosts dancing in the rafters. You aren't afraid of ghosts, though. You know the night shift belongs to you and the animals. You are the masters of this space. You watch the smoke and feel your eyes getting heavier. The sound of the wind is becoming a lullaby. It is a very big, very loud song that tells you it is time to sleep. You reach out and touch the rough wall of your blanket. It feels dry and solid. You are a small part of a very old story, the story of humans and animals huddling together against the wild. This story has been told for thousands of years. In every corner of the world where the winter gets cold, you were just the latest person to play the part of the watchman. You take one last look at the tiny pile of snow by the door, and then you close your eyes. The blizzard can howl all at once. Inside the Longhouse, it is summer in the straw. You lie back on your straw bed and look up. Even in the deepest part of the night, your eyes have grown used to the dark. Above you, the air is not empty. It is filled with a soft, slow-moving fog of smoke. This smoke comes from the hearth in the middle of the room. Since there is no chimney to pull the air up quickly, the smoke has to find its own way out. It rises from the red coals in a thin ribbon, and then, once it reaches the height of the rafters, it begins to spread out. It forms a thick, grey layer that hangs over the entire house like a second ceiling. In the Middle Ages, this was just how life was. You didn't think of the smoke as a nuisance. You thought of it as a protector. This is a simple historical fact. Smoke was the best way to keep a house healthy. The smoke is full of tiny bits of burnt wood and peat, and it has a very strong smell. It travels into every nook and cranny of the thatched roof. There, it does a very important job. It kills the tiny bugs and beetles that like to eat the dry straw. Without the smoke, the roof would eventually rot or be eaten away. The smoke makes the thatch hard and black, turning it into a shield that can last for 40 years. You watch a small curl of smoke as it drifts near a beam. It moves in a slow circle, caught in a tiny current of warm air. It looks like a ghost's finger. You follow it with your eyes as it rises higher. Eventually, the smoke finds the smoke hole. This is a specific microhistory detail of the Longhouse. It is not a window or a proper vent, but a small intentional gap in the thatch near the peak of the roof. You can see a tiny bit of the dark sky through it, and sometimes a single snowflake falls through the hole, but mostly the hole is there to let the house breathe. The smoke escapes into the cold night, and fresh air is pulled in from the tiny gaps around the door. There is a moment of atmospheric reflection as you watch the smoke. It is very quiet except for the hush of the blizzard outside. You think about how the smoke connects the inside of the house to the outside world. It is like the house is breathing. It takes in the wood and the peat, and it breathes out this grey mist. The smoke carries the smell of your home, the smell of the pottage, the wool, and the cows up into the clouds. It is a signal to anyone lost in the storm that there is a fire here. There is life here. You notice how the smoke has changed the look of the wood. The oak beams are no longer the colour of sand or honey. They are as black as coal. This is because of the soot. Soot is the black dust that the smoke leaves behind. Over many years, it builds up into a thick, shiny crust. This soot actually protects the wood. It acts like a layer of paint, keeping the damp air from soaking into the beams and making them soft. You reach up and touch a low part of a rafter. Your finger comes away with a bit of black smudge. It smells of old fires and ancient nights. The smoke also helps with the night shift food. You look toward the kitchen area and see the smoke rack. This is a simple wooden frame hanging from the ceiling. On it, there are pieces of bacon and rings of sausages. The smoke swirls around the meat all night long. This is how you cure food. The chemicals in the smoke stop the meat from going bad. In a world without fridges, the smoke is your best friend. It turns the fresh meat from the autumn into food that will stay good until the next summer. It gives the meat a salty, smoky taste that you love. You feel a sense of peace as you watch the grey blanket move above you. It is very hypnotic. The way the smoke swirls and flows is like watching water in a slow river. It makes you feel very sleepy. You realize that the smoke is part of the warmth. It traps the heat from the fire and the animals, reflecting it back down toward your bed. If the house were perfectly clear and the air moved too fast, the heat would escape. The smoke acts like an invisible blanket, holding the warmth close to the floor where you need it. The wind outside gives a particularly loud thud against the wall. A little puff of smoke is pushed down from the rafters by the pressure. It smells more strongly of peat, for a moment earthy and rich. You don't cough. You are used to this air. In fact, when you go outside into the thin, cold air of the fields, it often feels too empty. You prefer the thick, busy air of the Longhouse. It feels like the house is full of substance. It feels like you are being cradled by the very breath of the hearth. You reflect on the night shift and your duty to the fire. You need to make sure the fire doesn't get too big, or the smoke would become too thick to breathe. But you also need to make sure it doesn't go out, or the smoke ceiling would vanish and the heat would be lost. It is a delicate balance. You are the guardian of the air. You watch the way the grey mist hangs and the way the red coals glow. Everything is in harmony. The house is breathing steadily, just like the cows in their stalls. You turn your head on your woolen pillow. The smoke makes the light of the dying fire look soft and blurry. It turns the Longhouse into a place of dreams. You feel like you are floating in a sea of grey and orange. The simple explanation for your comfort is that you have everything you need. You have a roof that breathes, a fire that feeds you, and smoke that protects you. The blizzard can scream, but it cannot touch the grey blanket above your head. You take one last look at the smoke hole. You see a tiny spark of a star for a split second before the clouds cover it up again. The smoke continues its slow journey out into the night. You feel your eyes closing. The history watchman is satisfied. The air is right, the heat is trapped, and the house is safe. You let yourself sink deeper into the straw. The smell of the peat smoke acting as a final, comforting lullaby. You lie in the soft darkness, and even though the fire is now just a collection of glowing red eyes, you feel a strange and wonderful thing. You feel a wave of warmth that does not come from the hearth. It comes from the other side of the low wall. This is the magic of animal heat. In the Middle Ages, people knew that a living body was a source of power. A large cow, like your big brown friend just a few feet away, is a massive engine of warmth. She eats the hay, her stomach works hard to break it down, and that work creates heat. Because she is so large, she stays hot all night long. This heat does not stay inside the cow, it radiates out from her skin, warming the air around her. Because the longhouse is one open space, that warm air begins to move. It is a simple historical fact that heat travels. The warm air from the cows and the sheep rises up, just like the smoke from the fire. It hits the thick thatch of the roof and then begins to roll across the ceiling toward the living side of the house. You can almost feel it as a physical touch, a soft, invisible hand pressing against your cheek. It is a moist, living heat that feels very different from the dry heat of the fire. You reach out your hand in the dark, pointing it toward the animal stalls. Even though you cannot see the air moving, you can feel the difference. The air near the door is sharp and cold, but the air coming over the low wall is thick and heavy. It feels like a warm mist. This is the secret of the night shift in the longhouse. You are not just a family living in a building, you are a group of living beings sharing your warmth to stay alive. The cows are giving you their heat, and in return, you have given them a place where the wind cannot reach them. It is a perfect deal. There is a moment of atmospheric reflection as you lie there. You think about how much wood you would have to burn if the animals were not here. You would have to stay awake all night, feeding the fire every hour to keep the frost from the corners. But the cows are burning hay instead of wood. They are doing the work for you. You feel a deep sense of peace knowing that even while you sleep, your heaters are awake, breathing and staying warm. You are not alone in the struggle against the blizzard. You have partners. You look at a specific detail near the animal, wall a dung channel. This is a micro-history detail of the longhouse floor. It is a shallow trench lined with flat stones that runs down the middle of the barn end and out under the wall. It is designed to keep the animal's bedding dry. Because the floor is sloped, any moisture flows into this channel and away from the house. By keeping the straw dry, you make sure the animals stay healthy. A dry cow is a warm cow, and a warm cow is a happy heater. You can hear a tiny trickle of water in the channel, a small, rhythmic sound that tells you the system is working. The heat from the animals carries the smell of the barn with it. It is a rich scent of damp wool and sweet grass. To you, this is the smell of comfort. It tells you that the night shift is safe. You imagine the heat as a golden light filling the room, pushing back the blue shadows of the winter. You feel your body relaxing into the straw. Your muscles, which were tight from the cold walk earlier, are now loose and heavy. The animal heat is like a medicine that takes away the aches of the day. You think about the simple explanation for why this works so well. It is because of the thick walls. The heat from the cows has nowhere to go. It is trapped inside the wattle and daub. The straw in the roof acts like a big woolly hat for the whole house. Because the heat stays inside, the temperature in the longhouse stays much higher than the world outside. It might be freezing in the field, but here it feels like a spring morning. You are living in a tropical island made of wood and mud, surrounded by a sea of ice. There is a lull in the wind, and for a moment, the house is perfectly still. In this silence, you hear the huff of a cow as she lets out a deep breath. You can almost feel the puff of warm air it creates. It is a very grounding sound. It reminds you that you are part of a cycle of life that is very old. For hundreds of years, people have lived exactly like this. They have sat in the dark, listening to their animals and feeling the warmth of their bodies. You are part of a long chain of humans who have found a way to be comfortable in a hard world. You move your legs under the heavy wool blankets. They feel warm and cozy. The animal heat has soaked into the fabric, making it feel like it was just taken out of an oven. You realize that you don't even need to be right next to the fire to be warm. As long as the cows are breathing, you will be fine. You feel a sense of gratitude for the big brown cow and the sheep. They are your silent guardians. They don't ask for much, just some hay and a kind word, and in return, they give you the gift of life. The shadows on the ceiling seem to move in time with the animals breathing. The whole house feels like it is pulsing with life. You are tucked into your nest, feeling the invisible waves of warmth washing over you. The night shift is a time of quiet sharing. You share your food with the animals, and they share their heat with you. It is a beautiful way to live. It makes you feel connected to everything around you. You are not just a person in a house, you are part of a living system. You take a long, slow breath of the warm, musky air. It feels good in your lungs. You can feel your heart rate slowing down as you drift towards sleep. The blizzard is still there, but it feels very far away now. It is just a noise, a ghost outside the walls. Inside, the magic of the animal heat is doing its work. You are safe, you are warm, and you are ready to dream. The watchman is closing his eyes, knowing that his living heaters will keep the fire of life burning until the sun comes up. The soft rustle of straw near your feet makes you open your eyes for a moment. In the dim light, you see a small, nimble shape moving toward you. It is the family goat. She is smaller than the cows and much more curious. She spent the early part of the evening tucked away in the corner of the barn, but now that the house has grown quiet, she has decided to find a better spot. She hops over the low wall with ease, her small hooves making a light tink-tink sound on the flat stones. She doesn't go to the fire. She wants the warmth of the humans. She finds a spot right at the edge of your straw bed. She turns in a circle 3 times, a very old animal habit, to make sure the straw is just right. Then she sinks down with a long, happy sigh. She is close enough that you can feel her weight against your legs through the heavy wool blankets. Having a goat join the circle is a common thing in a longhouse. In the Middle Ages, animals were not kept in separate buildings far away. They were your roommates. A goat was a very useful animal to have. She gave you rich milk for cheese, and her hair could be spun into a very strong, rough yarn. You reach out a hand from under your blanket and touch her head. Her fur is much coarser than the cow's, and she has 2 small, smooth horns that feel like polished wood. She leans her head against your hand, her ears twitching. She is a small source of heat, like a warm stone you would put in your bed to keep your feet from freezing. This is a specific microhistory detail. Peasants often use small livestock, like goats or dogs, as foot warmers during the deepest part of the winter. It was a simple, clever way to make sure the heat stayed exactly where you needed it. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. You and the goat are now part of the same little island of warmth. You look at her rectangular pupils, which are designed to see in the dark. She looks back at you with a calm, steady gaze. You feel a sense of reflection. You think about how people in the future might think it is strange to sleep with a goat, but to you, it feels like the most natural thing in the world. The goat is clean and warm, and she brings a sense of life to the corner of the room. She is a reminder that you are the guardian of all the creatures under this roof. The goat's breath is small and quick, different from the deep, slow whoosh of the cow's. It creates a tiny rhythm of its own. You find it very comforting. It is like having a small clock ticking near your feet. You think about the night shift, and how even the smallest animal has a part to play. The goat keeps you warm, and in return, you make sure she is safe from the cold. It is a bond of friendship that has existed as long as humans have been farmers. You feel a deep sense of peace in this shared space. You notice the smell of the goat. It is a bit sharper than the cow's, a peppery wild scent that reminds you of the rocky hills where she likes to climb in the summer. It mixes with the smell of the peat smoke and the sweet hay. It is the smell of a house that is full of different lives all working together. You take a slow breath and feel the goat's body heat soaking through the blankets. It is a very direct heat. Because she is resting right against you, you don't lose any of that warmth to the air. A simple historical fact about goats in the Middle Ages is that they were often called the poor man's cow. They were easier to keep because they could eat almost anything, even the tough weeds and brambles that a cow would walk past. Having her inside tonight means she won't use up all her energy just trying to stay alive in the blizzard. She can save that energy to make milk for your breakfast tomorrow. By protecting her, you are protecting your own food supply. Everything in the longhouse is connected in a big, beautiful circle. The wind gives a sudden, sharp whistle through a tiny gap in the thatch. The goat pricks up her ears and looks toward the roof. She stays still for a second, listening, and then she relaxes and puts her head back down on her paws. If she isn't worried, you don't need to be worried. Animals are much better at sensing danger than humans are. Her calm tells you that the house is holding strong. You feel your own heart rate slow down, matching the quiet rhythm of the room. You think about the night shift as a time of gathering. During the day, everyone is spread out. You are in the woods, your sisters are at the well, and the animals are in the fields or the barn. But at night, the winter forces you all into this one small circle. The blizzard is like a giant hand pushing everything together. It makes the world feel very small and very safe. You are tucked into your nest, the goat is at your feet, and the cows are just over the wall. You have everything you need to survive the night. The light from the hearth is almost gone now. The room is a place of deep shadows and soft sounds. You can hear the goat's stomach making a little gurgling noise as she digests her hay. It is a funny, domestic sound that makes you smile. It is a sign of health and comfort. You pull the blanket a little tighter, feeling the goat's warmth spreading up your legs. You are very lucky to have such a small, friendly heater. You take one last look at the goat before you close your eyes. Her eyes are already shut, and her breathing has become slow and steady. She is fast asleep. You follow her lead, letting the weight of the day fall away. The history watchman is not alone on his watch. He has a small, furry companion to keep him company. You let yourself sink into the straw, the goat's warmth acting as the final piece of the puzzle. The house is full, the circle is closed, and the winter night is held at bay. You lie very still, your head resting on your folded cloak. The house has settled into its deepest rhythm. From the far end of the barn, beyond the cows and the curious goat, you hear the sheep. They do not make loud noises like the cows, and they do not move around like the goat. Instead, they stay in a very tight group, huddled together for safety. Because the air is so quiet, you can hear their breathing. It is a light, fast sound, like a soft wind blowing through dry leaves. Huff, 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 huff. When 20 sheep breathe together, it creates a steady, humming sound that fills the lower end of the longhouse. In the Middle Ages, sheep were the lifeblood of the village. Their wool was used for everything: your clothes, your blankets, and even the heavy rugs on the floor. This is a simple historical fact. A sheep's wool is designed by nature to trap heat. Even when the sheep is alive and standing in the barn, that wool is working. It holds a layer of warm air right next to the sheep's skin. Because they are all pressed together in a big fluffy circle, they create a giant island of warmth. They are like a big, soft cloud that has been brought inside to keep the house from getting too cold. You listen to the rhythm of their breath. It is much faster than yours, but it is very steady. It reminds you of the sound of a small stream running over stones. You find this sound incredibly sleepy. It is a white noise, a sound that blocks out the scary noises of the blizzard outside. Whenever the wind gives a loud scream, the sound of the sheep's breathing stays the same. It is a constant, dependable sound. You feel your own heart rate start to slow down as you listen. Your mind starts to drift, following the huff, huff, huff of the flock. A specific microhistory detail of your sheep is the raddle marks on their backs. A raddle is a piece of coloured stone or clay used to mark the wall. You can see a few faint spots of red or blue on their fleeces in the dim light. This was done in the autumn, so you could tell which sheep belonged to which family when they were all out on the common land. Now those marks are just little spots of colour in the grey shadows of the longhouse. They remind you of the busy days of the harvest, but right now the sheep have no work to do. Their only job is to breathe and stay warm. There is a moment of atmospheric silence as the wind dies down for a few seconds. In this gap, the sound of the sheep becomes the most important thing in the world. You reflect on how peaceful they are. They do not worry about the storm or the morning. They just exist in the present moment, sharing their heat with each other and with you. You feel a sense of safety that is very deep. You are surrounded by living things that are all doing the same thing, waiting for the light. You are not just a person. You are part of a flock, protected by the thick walls and the heavy thatch. The breathing of the sheep also tells you about the air in the house. If the air was too smoky or too cold, the sheep would be restless. They would cough or shift around. But they are perfectly still. This means the night shift is going exactly as it should. The smoke is hanging high in the rafters, and the heat from the hearth and the cows is keeping the floor comfortable. You take a slow breath yourself, tasting the earthy, woolly scent of the flock on the air. It is a heavy smell, but it is a good one. It smells like a full storehouse and a safe winter. You think about the simple explanation for why the sheep are so quiet. It is because they feel the warmth of the cows. The big brown cow acts like a shield for the smaller animals. Her massive body blocks any tiny drafts that might come from the lower walls. The sheep huddle in her shadow, taking the heat she gives off and adding their own to it. It is a system of sharing that makes sure no one gets left out in the cold. Even the smallest lamb in the flock is kept warm by the collective heat of the house. You move your hand under your blanket, feeling the straw crunch beneath you. The sound of the sheep is like a lullaby that never ends. It is a very old song, one that has been heard in longhouses for hundreds of years. You imagine your ancestors listening to this same sound, feeling the same sense of peace. It connects you to the past in a way that words cannot. You are doing the same night shift that your grandfather did and his grandfather before him. The sheep are the same, the straw is the same, and the cold is the same. The darkness in the house is now almost total. The fire is just a memory of light, a soft red pulse in the center of the room. But you don't need light to feel safe. The sounds are enough. The crunch of the cow's hay, the sigh of the goat, and the huff-huff of the sheep tell you everything you need to know. The house is alive. It is a living, breathing creature made of wood, stone, mud, and animals. You are a small part of that creature, tucked away in its heart. You feel your eyes getting very heavy. The rhythmic breathing of the sheep is pulling you down into a deep, dreamless sleep. It is the best kind of sleep. The kind that only comes when you know you are completely protected. You give one last thought to the blizzard, which is still thumping against the walls, but it feels very far away now. It is like a story someone told you a long time ago. The only reality is the warm straw, the heavy wool, and the steady breath of the flock. The history watchman is finished with his thinking for a while. The watch is being kept by the animals now. Their heat and their breath are the guards that will keep the frost away. You let your head sink deeper into your woolly pillow, your ears filled with the calming sound of the sheep. You are safe. You are warm. The circle of the Longhouse is complete. You close your eyes and let the huff-huff-huff carry you away into the dark. The Longhouse has finally fallen into a deep, heavy darkness. The bright orange flames from earlier are gone, and the fire has settled down into a bed of glowing red coals. These coals look like small, precious jewels, buried in the grey ash of the hearth. They do not throw long shadows anymore. Instead, they give off a very soft, warm light that only reaches a few feet. Beyond that small circle, the corners of the house have disappeared. The big oak beams, the hanging herbs, and the stone walls are all hidden in the black. This is the true night shift, when the world of the eye closes and the world of the ear and the skin takes over. In the Middle Ages, darkness was not a scary thing. If you were inside your own home, it was a sign that the day's work was done and it was time for the body to heal. This is a simple historical fact. People in this time lived by the rhythm of the sun. When the sun went down, they went to bed. They did not have light bulbs or bright screens to keep their brains awake. Their bodies knew that when the fire turned red and the room turned black, it was time to sink into the straw. The darkness is like a heavy velvet blanket that covers everything, making the house feel smaller and even more private. You lie in your nest, and you can only see the faint shape of the goat at your feet and the tiny red pulse of the hearth. It is a very peaceful kind of darkness. It is not empty. It is full of the warmth and the sounds of the animals. You feel a sense of reflection. You think about how the darkness makes everyone equal. In the dark, the lord in his castle and the peasant in his longhouse are doing the same thing. They are both waiting for the morning. The darkness is a quiet time when the history watchman can finally let go of his worries. There is a specific tool you used just before the light faded away. It is called a fire fork. This is a long iron rod with a hooked end. You used it to push the glowing coals together into a tight pile. By huddling the coals together, you make sure they stay hot for a very long time. If they were spread out, the cold air would steal their heat quickly, but together they protect each other. This is exactly what the sheep are doing at the other end of the house. Everything in the Longhouse, from the wood to the animals, knows that staying together is the best way to survive the dark. There is a long moment of atmospheric silence. You can hear the tick, tick of the cooling stones in the hearth. As the stones lose the high heat of the flames, they shrink just a tiny bit, making those small, sharp sounds. It sounds like the house is whispering to itself. You listen to the wind, but it feels like it is in another world. The thick walls of mud and straw are so good at soaking up the noise that the blizzard sounds like a dream. You feel very safe in your dark cocoon. You are tucked away where the winter cannot find you. The simple explanation for why you feel so calm in the dark is that your other senses are working harder. Because you cannot see, you feel the warmth of the cow more clearly. You can feel the moisture in the air from the animal's breath. You can smell the peat and the hay more strongly. It is as if the darkness has opened up a new way of experiencing your home. You are not just looking at the house, you are part of it. You feel the vibration of the cow shifting and the soft rustle of the straw, as if it were happening to your own body. You think about the night shift as a time of deep trust. You trust the walls to hold. You trust the fire to stay alive in the ashes. You trust the animals to keep the air warm. This trust allows your mind to slow down. In the Middle Ages, life could be very hard and very fast during the day, with much work to be done. But the night was a gift of silence. It was the only time when you didn't have to be doing something. You could just be. You could just breathe and exist in the warm dark. You move your hand and feel the rough texture of your wall blanket. In the dark, the wall feels even thicker. You can feel every little knot and twist in the yarn. This blanket was made to last a lifetime, and it feels like it. It has a weight to it that is very grounding. You pull it up over your shoulder, tucking yourself into a tight ball. You are a small, warm spark in a big, dark room. It is a very cozy feeling. You are not afraid of the shadows. You are friends with them. The darkness also helps keep the heat in. When there are no big flames, the air doesn't move as fast. The warm air from the cows and the hearth settles into a thick layer near the floor. You are breathing in that recycled warmth. It tastes of the earth and the animals. It is a very rich, heavy air that makes your lungs feel full and satisfied. You take a slow, deep breath and let it out with a quiet "arsh." You are perfectly content. You look at the red coals one last time. They are fading slowly, turning a dusty grey as the ash covers them. This ash is like a blanket for the fire, keeping the core of the coal hot until the morning. You realize that you are doing the same thing. Your blankets and your straw are your ash, keeping your body heat safe until the sun returns. It is a beautiful way to think about sleep. You are banking your energy, just like you bank the fire. The history watchman is ready to stop watching. The room is dark, the air is warm, and the sounds are steady. The blizzard is just a distant hum, and the animals are all settled. You feel a wave of sleepiness wash over you, starting at your toes and moving up to your head. It is a heavy, dark wave, just like the room. You let yourself sink into it, knowing that the Longhouse will hold you safe in its wooden arms until the light of a new day breaks through the smoke hole. In the deep quiet of the night, you lie awake for a moment, thinking about why everyone is here. Why are the people, the cows, the sheep, and even the goat all packed into this one long room? In our time, we like to have our own space. We like rooms with doors that shut. But in the Middle Ages, staying together was not just a choice, it was the only way to stay alive. This is a simple historical fact. Humans and animals in a longhouse formed a circle of life. We provided the shelter and the hay, and the animals provided the heat and the food. If you separated the two, both would suffer. A lone person in a cold house would freeze, and a lone cow in a cold barn would grow weak and stop giving milk. You reflect on the strength of this togetherness. There is a special feeling in a house that is full of living things. It feels solid. It feels like a fortress. Even though you are just a peasant in a house made of mud and straw, you are part of a team. You think about the night shift as a shared job. You are the one who watches the fire, but the big brown cow is the one who keeps the air warm with her breath. The sheep are the ones who keep the lower end of the house from freezing. Everyone has a part to play. It makes you feel very safe. You are not just one small person against the giant winter. You are part of a large, warm group. The Longhouse is designed to make this staying together easy. You look at the stall posts that stand in a line down the middle of the barn side. These are specific micro-history details. Each post is a thick trunk of a young oak tree, stripped of its bark and buried deep in the ground. On each post, there is a hutch. A hutch is a small wooden box or shelf fixed to the post where you can keep a little bit of extra grain or a grooming brush for the animals. These posts are the pillars that hold up the roof, but they also define the space for each animal. Even though there are no walls, the animals know their place. They stay in their stalls and you stay in your bed, but the heat moves freely between you. There is a moment of atmospheric reflection as you listen to the sounds of the group. You can hear a cow let out a long, slow sigh. You hear the rustle of a sheep turning over in the straw. You hear the goat's small hooves move. These sounds tell you that the community is healthy. If the house was silent, it would be a scary thing. A silent house is a cold house. But a house full of noise is a house full of heat. You feel a deep sense of belonging. You are important to the cows, and they are important to you. In the winter, the line between human and animal gets very thin. You are all just warm-blooded creatures trying to make it to the morning. The staying together also helps with the night shift work. Because everyone is in one room, you don't have to go outside to check on the animals. If a cow was having a hard time, you would hear it immediately. You wouldn't have to put on your boots and walk through the blizzard to a separate barn. You could just sit up in your straw bed, light a tallow dip, and be there in 5 steps. This closeness saved lives. It meant that nothing happened in the dark that you didn't know about. You are the watchman, and your charges are right there with you, under the same smoky rafters. You think about the simple explanation for why this works so well. It is because of body heat. A human body is warm, but a cow's body is much larger and warmer. When you put 10 or 15 large animals in a small insulated space, the temperature rises quickly. It is like having a large heater that never turns off. By staying together, you are pooling your resources. You are making the most of every calorie of energy that was gathered from the summer grass. It is a very clever and very old way to live. It shows that people in the past were very smart about how they used the world around them. The darkness of the house makes the feeling of togetherness even stronger. You can't see the individual animals, so they just feel like a big, warm presence. The air is thick with the smell of their breath and the scent of the hay. It is a very cozy, crowded feeling. In the Middle Ages, being alone was often a sign of danger or sadness. Being together was a sign of safety and wealth. You feel very lucky to have such a full house tonight. The blizzard can howl and beat against the walls, but it cannot get inside the circle. You move your hand and feel the goat's fur again. She is still there, tucked against your legs. She is a small part of the big circle. You think about how everything in the house has a purpose. The fire gives light and cooks food. The cows give heat and milk. The sheep give wool and warmth. The humans give care and protection. It is a perfect balance. You feel a sense of pride in your role. You are the one who holds it all together. You are the one who makes sure the door is barred and the fire is banked. As you lie there, you feel a wave of sleepiness. The combined warmth of the house is like a heavy blanket. It presses down on you, making it hard to stay awake. You realize that you don't need to stay awake anymore. The animals are doing the work of staying warm. The walls are doing the work of staying strong. You have done your part for the night shift. You can let go and trust the circle. You take a slow, deep breath of the musky, warm air. It feels very good. It feels like home. You look toward the hearth one last time. The red coals are very dim now, but you don't mind. You have the heat of the cows and the sheep to keep you company. You are wrapped in the warmth of a dozen living hearts. It is the best protection in the world. You close your eyes and let the sounds of the breathing flock carry you away. You are safe in the Longhouse. You are part of the team. You are ready to rest. The history watchman is sinking into the straw, his heart full of the peace that comes from being together. The winter night is long, but it is not lonely. The circle is strong, and the morning will come in its own time. You let your mind go quiet, matching the steady rhythm of the house. You are warm, you are safe, and the watch is in good hands. The air in the house has reached its peak warmth. You can feel it most strongly when you reach out your hand and touch the low wall that stands between you and the cows. Earlier in the evening, the stone felt cool to the touch. But now, after hours of the animals standing and sleeping right next to it, the wall has soaked up their heat. It feels like a large, flat loaf of bread that has just come out of the oven. This is a moment of reflection. You think about how amazing it is that these animals are so full of fire. They are like giant, furry jars of hot water, and you are lucky enough to be their neighbor. You shift your body in the straw so that you can reach over the wall. You move slowly so you do not wake the goat at your feet. Your fingers find the thick fur of the big brown cow. She is lying down now, her massive body pressed right against the other side of the stones. You can feel the heat radiating off her through your sleeve. It is a very deep, solid heat. It is not like the heat of a fire that can go out or blow away. This is the heat of life. It is constant and steady. As long as she is breathing, she will be warm. A specific microhistory detail you notice is the curry comb sitting on the ledge of the wall. This is a small tool made of iron with several rows of short, blunt teeth. You use it every day to brush the cows. It keeps their fur clean, but more importantly, it helps their blood flow. By brushing them, you help them stay healthy and warm. You reach out and touch the cold metal of the comb. It feels like a piece of ice compared to the cow's skin. You realize that your tools are cold and dead, but your animals are warm and alive. It makes you feel a deep sense of gratitude for the cow. She is doing more than just giving milk. She is a partner in your survival. The simple explanation for why you feel so much heat from her side is that she is a very large animal. A cow is many times bigger than a person. Because she is so big, she has a lot of mass. This means she can hold a lot of heat inside her body. In the Middle Ages, having a big cow was like having a giant treasure chest, but instead of gold, it was full of warmth. You can feel her ribs move as she takes a deep, slow breath. The sound of her lungs filling and emptying is like the sound of a large bellows at the blacksmith's shop. It is a powerful rhythmic sound that makes the whole wall vibrate. There is a moment of atmospheric silence as you keep your hand on her warm side. You listen to the blizzard outside. It sounds very far away now, like a story being told in another room. The walls are thick, the thatch is deep, and the cow is hot. You feel like you are in a secret world that the winter cannot find. You are tucked away in the very heart of the longhouse. You feel a sense of peace that is very heavy. It makes your muscles feel soft and your mind feel quiet. You are exactly where you need to be. You think about the night shift and how this moment is the reward for all your hard work. You spend the summer cutting hay, the autumn gathering peat, and the evening mending the walls. Now, in the middle of the night, you get to sit in the warmth that you helped create. You are the watchman, but you are also a part of the family. You are being looked after by the animals just as much as you are looking after them. It is a beautiful way to live. Everything is shared, the food, the shelter, and even the heat from your own bodies. The darkness is so thick that you can't see the cow's face, but you can feel her presence. She's a very calm animal. She doesn't mind you touching her. In fact, she seems to like the company. She gives a small, soft grunt and moves her head a little closer to the wall. You feel the warmth of her breath on your hand. It is moist and smells of sweet hay. You take a slow breath of the same air. It feels very good in your lungs. It is the breath of a healthy house. A historical fact about these cows is that they were much smaller than the cows you might see today. They were tough and hardy, built to live on the rough grass of the hills. But even though they were smaller, they were still massive compared to a person. They were the engines of the farm. They pulled the plow, they gave the milk, and they kept a house from freezing. You feel a deep sense of respect for her. She is a strong, noble creature, and she is your best friend on this cold night. You pull your hand back under your wool blanket, but the warmth of the cow stays with you. Your fingers feel tingly and hot. You realize that you don't need any more fire tonight. The cow is doing the work. You can let the red coals in the hearth turn to grey ash. You can let the smoke clear from the rafters. The living heater on the other side of the wall will not go out. She will stay warm until the sun comes up and the night shift is over. You settle back into your straw nest, feeling the goat's weight at your feet. The warmth of the wall is at your back. You feel like you are being cradled by the house itself. You are a small, warm seed in a big, cold world, but you are protected by layers of stone, mud, wool, and fur. It is the best feeling in the world. You let your eyes close, and your mind starts to drift. The rhythmic breathing of the cow is the last thing you hear. It is a slow, steady song of life that tells you everything is okay. The history watchman is satisfied. The wall is hot, the cow is settled, and the house is safe. You have done your duty, and now you can let the warmth of the animals carry you into a deep, peaceful sleep. You are warm, you are safe, and the winter night is being held at bay by the magic of the living heater equals. The fire in the middle of the room has finally gone to sleep. You look over at the hearth and see only a thick layer of grey ash. There are no more red eyes peeking out at you. The night shift has reached a quiet turning point. In the summer you would have plenty of wood to keep a fire roaring all night long. But winter is different. Wood is precious. To get a single log, you have to walk deep into the frozen woods, find a fallen branch that isn't buried too deep in the snow, and haul it back on your shoulders. Because it is so hard to find, you have to be very careful with how much you burn. Tonight, the wood is all gone, but you are not worried. In the Middle Ages, people were experts at saving energy. This is a simple historical fact. When the wood ran out, the animals took over. You don't need a fire when you have a barn full of living heat. The cows, the sheep, and the goat are doing the work of the logs now. They are burning the hay they ate earlier to keep the air at a steady, comfortable temperature. It is a very clever way to live. Instead of a fire that gets very hot and then goes out, you have a living furnace that stays the same warmth all night long. You feel a sense of reflection as you look at the cold hearth. You realize that you don't miss the flames. The house feels just as safe and just as warm without them. You reach out and touch a specific microhistory detail sitting near your bed, your fire steel. This is a small piece of high-carbon iron shaped like a thick ring. You use it to strike a piece of flint to make sparks. It feels very cold and heavy in your hand. You won't need it until the morning. You set it back down on a flat stone. In a modern house, if the heater stops, the house gets cold almost immediately. But your longhouse is different. The walls are so thick and the thatch is so deep that the heat stays trapped inside like water in a bowl. The house remembers the heat of the fire and the heat of the sun, and it holds onto it for you. The simple explanation for why you are still warm is the insulation. That is a big word, but it just means that the house has a very thick coat. The wattle and door walls are like a heavy wool sweater for the building. The straw roof is like a thick winter hat. Because the coat of the house is so good, the heat from the animals doesn't escape into the cold night. It stays right here, swirling around your straw bed and the low wall. You can feel the warmth on your skin even though the fire is dead. It is a soft, moist heat that feels very natural. It feels like you are being hugged by the house itself. There is a moment of atmospheric silence. The only sound is the wind, which has become a low, distant hum. Inside, the silence is very thick. You can hear the tiny tink of a single coal settling under the ash. But that is all. You feel very safe. You are tucked into your nest of straw and wool, and you have no need for more fire. You are part of the night shift that doesn't need light to see. You can feel the layout of the room in your bones. You know where the door is, where the cows are, and where the family is sleeping. The darkness is your friend. You think about the history watchman and how his job changes when the fire goes out. You are no longer watching the flames. You are listening to the breath. As long as the animals are breathing, the house is being heated. You listen to the deep whoosh of the big brown cow and the lighter huff-huff of the sheep. It is a beautiful symphony of survival. You feel a sense of pride. You managed to fuel well. You used the fire when you needed to cook and see, and now you are using the animals to stay warm while you sleep. It is a perfect plan. You move your legs under the blankets, feeling the weight of the goat. She is very warm. She is like a small, fuzzy log that never turns to ash. You realize that humans have lived like this for thousands of years. Long before there were big cities or stone castles, there were people in longhouses, sitting in the dark with their animals. It is a very honest way to live. You don't have many things, but the things you have are all important. Your life is tied to the life of the cow and the goat. You're all one big family, helping each other make it through the winter. The air in the house is starting to feel very heavy and drowsy. Without the light of the fire to distract you, your brain is ready to shut down. You take a slow, deep breath. The air doesn't smell like smoke anymore. It smells like hay and clean wool. It is a very peaceful smell. It reminds you of the summer fields and the long, sunny days. You feel your heart rate slowing down, matching the rhythm of the cows. You are sinking deeper into the straw, feeling the support of the earth beneath you. You think about the night shift workers in other places. Maybe the monks in the distant abbey are waking up to pray in their cold stone chapel. You feel lucky to be here in your warm mud house, surrounded by your animals. Your chapel is the Longhouse, and your prayers are the steady breaths of your flock. You feel a sense of peace that is very deep. You are not alone, and you are not cold. You have everything you need to dream safely until the morning light finds the smoke hole. You let your head sink back onto your woolly pillow. The darkness is complete, but it is a kind darkness. It is the darkness of a seed in the ground or a baby in a cradle. You are being looked after by the house and the animals. The watchman is finished with his work. You have banked the fire, you have shared the heat, and you have trusted the circle. You take one last breath of the warm, musky air and let your eyes close for the final time tonight. The house is quiet, the animals are warm, and the watch is ended for now. You wake for a tiny moment in the middle of the night. At first, you think something is wrong because it is so quiet. Usually, you can hear the wind whistling through the thatch or the trees groaning in the distance. But now, there is nothing. The screaming blizzard has stopped. The world outside is perfectly, deeply silent. It is a deafening silence, the kind that feels like it is pressing against your ears. You realize what has happened. The snow has fallen so heavily that it has piled up against the walls and over the roof. Your house is buried under a mountain of white powder. In the Middle Ages, being buried in snow was actually a very good thing. This is a simple historical fact. Snow is a wonderful insulator. Because snow is mostly made of air trapped between tiny ice crystals, it doesn't let heat pass through it easily. It is like the Longhouse has put on a second, even thicker coat. The cold wind can no longer touch the mud walls. The freezing air can no longer find the gaps in the thatch. The snow has sealed you in, trapping every bit of heat from the cows and the hearth inside with you. It is warmer in the house now than it has been all night. You lie there in the dark, feeling the stillness. It is a moment of deep reflection. You think about how the world outside has disappeared. There are no paths, no fences, and no fields anymore. There is only the white. But inside, everything is exactly the same. The big brown cow is still breathing. The goat is still warm against your legs. The straw is still dry. You feel a sense of absolute safety. It is like being in a secret room that only you and the animals know about. The rest of the world is frozen and dead. But here, the heart of life is still beating. You think about the work you will have to do in the morning. You look toward the corner where you keep your snow shovel. This is a specific microhistory detail of your winter tools. It is not made of metal, because metal is too heavy and too expensive. It is carved from a single wide piece of ash wood. The blade is flat and smooth, and the handle is worn to the shape of your grip. Tomorrow, you will have to dig a tunnel from the door, just to let the light in and to reach the well. But for now, the shovel is just a shadow in the dark. You don't need to dig yet. You just need to be. The simple explanation for why you feel so cozy is that the snow has stopped the air from moving. Heat stays where it is when the air is still. Without the wind to pull the warmth away, the Longhouse has become a warm pocket of life. You can feel the heat from your own body reflected back at you from the heavy wool blankets. You are a warm little stove, and the house is your oven. You feel your muscles relax even more than before. The silence of the snow is like a heavy, soft curtain that has been pulled across the world. You listen closely, trying to hear anything from the outside. You can't even hear the owls or the distant wolves. The snow has muffled every sound. It is just you and the steady, rhythmic noises of the house. You hear the crunch of a sheep moving in its sleep and the slow whoosh of the cow's breath. These sounds are louder now because the background noise of the wind is gone. They are very comforting. They tell you that you are not alone in your snowy cave. You are part of a small, warm family of living things. There is a moment of atmospheric silence as you let yourself sink back into the straw. You think about the history watchman and how his watch has become very easy. The snow is doing the guarding for you. It is a wall that no enemy can cross. It is a blanket that no cold can get through. You feel a sense of peace that is very deep and very old. For thousands of years, people have felt this same relief when the storm stops and the snow seals the door. It is the peace of knowing that you have survived the worst of the winter night. You move your toes inside your woolen hose. They are warm and toasty. The goat gives a little kick in her sleep, a small hoof brushing against your shin. You smile in the dark. She is safe too. You think about the birds and the rabbits out in the woods, huddling under the bushes and trying to stay alive. You wish you could bring them all inside the Longhouse, but you know that nature has its own ways. You have done your part by looking after the creatures under your roof. You have fulfilled your duty to the night shift. The darkness feels very soft now. It doesn't feel like an empty space. It feels like it is filled with the warmth of the animals and the smell of the hay. You take a slow, deep breath of the thick air. It tastes of safety. You realize that you are very lucky to have these thick walls and this heavy roof. You are lucky to have the big brown cow and the huddling sheep. Without them, the silence of the snow would be a scary thing. But with them, it is a beautiful, quiet song. You feel your eyes closing again. The history watchman is ready to return to his dreams. The world is buried, the air is still, and the heat is trapped. There is nothing left to do but wait for the sun to find its way through the snow-covered smoke hole. You let your mind drift, following the quiet rhythm of the buried house. You are warm, you are safe, and the Longhouse is holding you close in its white, frozen arms. The watch is quiet. The watch is peaceful. You sink into the golden straw, feeling the weight of the night turn into the lightness of rest. The snow is your friend tonight, and the Longhouse is your world. You close your eyes and let the silence carry you away into the deep, warm dark. You are lying in your nest of straw, and for the first time all night, you feel a sense of total, perfect stillness. The blizzard has done its work, and the house is now a silent island under the snow. You look around at the walls that surround you. Even in the dark, you can feel their strength. These walls are not just mud and branches. They are a shield that has been tested by many years of wind and ice. You feel a deep sense of reflection. You think about how much care went into every inch of this building. Each handful of mud was pressed into place with the hope that it would keep a family warm, and tonight it is doing exactly that. The simple explanation for why you feel so secure is the weight of the house. In the Middle Ages, people didn't have light, thin materials. Everything was heavy. The stones in the foundation, the oak in the frame, and the thick layers of the roof all have a lot of heaviness that stops the cold from moving through. When you are inside these walls, you are inside a fortress. You realize that no matter how hard the winter tries, it cannot break in. The house is a solid promise of safety. It is a place where the night shift ends and rest begins. You reach out and touch the wall near your head. You can feel the texture of the door begin. It feels like very hard, dry skin. In some places, you can feel a little bit of the wattle, the willow branches, peeking through. This is a specific microhistory detail, the willow weave. You remember helping your father cut these long bendy branches from the riverbank in the spring. You remember how they smelled of wet earth and green life. Now they are hidden inside the wall, holding the mud together so it doesn't crack. They are the hidden bones of your protection. You feel a sense of pride knowing that the work of the spring is what is keeping you alive in the winter. The air in the house is very calm. Because the snow has sealed all the tiny gaps, there are no more drafts. The air doesn't move at all. It just sits there, warm and heavy, like a pool of water. You can feel the heat from your own breath hanging in the air for a second before it drifts away. It is a very cozy feeling. You are not fighting the cold anymore. You have won. You are safe within your thick walls, and the winter has been left outside to freeze the rest of the world. You feel like a king in a castle, even though your castle is made of earth. You think about the history watchman and how he can finally relax. The watch is no longer a struggle. It is a celebration. You have made it through the worst part of the night. You have kept the fire, you have fed the animals, and you have built your nest. Now, you can just enjoy the feeling of being protected. You listen to the quiet sounds of the longhouse. You hear the clack of a cow's hoof and the soft rustle of a sheep. These sounds are not loud, but they are very clear in the silence. They tell you that everyone is safe. Everyone is warm. You move your hand and feel the heavy wool of your blanket. It is a very honest material. It doesn't try to be fancy. It just tries to be warm. You think about how lucky you are to have these simple things. A dry roof, a thick wall, and a warm animal. In the Middle Ages, these were the things that really mattered. You don't need gold or silver to feel rich tonight. You feel rich because you are not shivering. You feel rich because you are not hungry. You are safe in your wooden world, and that is enough. There is a moment of atmospheric silence as you look at the dark rafters. You can't see the smoke anymore, but you can smell it. It is a very faint, sweet smell now, like the memory of a fire. It mixes with the scent of the hay and the musk of the cows. It is a very thick smell, a smell that has many layers. It is the smell of a house that has seen many winters. You feel a sense of connection to all the people who have lived here before you. They sat in this same straw, listened to these same sounds, and felt this same peace. You are part of a long, warm chain of life. The silence of the snow outside makes the house feel even more private. It is as if the rest of the village has been wiped away. There is only you and the creatures in this room. You feel a deep bond with the big brown cow and the little goat. You are all huddling together in the dark, waiting for the light. You are their guardian, and they are your heaters. It is a beautiful partnership. You reach out and pat the goat's back, feeling her steady breathing. She is fast asleep, and her peace makes you feel even sleepier. You think about the night shift as a time of quiet victory. Every hour that you stay warm is a victory over the frost. Every breath the animals take is a victory over the dark. You are winning the battle just by being here. You feel a sense of strength in your body. You are not a victim of the winter. You are a master of it. You have used the tools and the animals and the building to create a world where you are the boss. You take a slow, deep breath of the warm air and feel your heart beating steadily in your chest. The darkness is very kind now. It is like a soft black cloth that has been laid over your eyes. You feel your muscles turning to lead, pulling you down into the straw. You are very, very tired. But it is a good kind of tired. It is the tiredness that comes after a long day of work and a successful watch. You know that you have done everything right. You have kept the spark of life going through the blizzard. You have fulfilled your duty as the watchman of the night. You let your head sink deeper into your pillow. The straw crunches softly, a final good night sound. You are warm, you are safe, and the thick walls of the longhouse are holding you tight. You don't need to worry about the morning yet. The morning will come when the sun is ready. For now, There is only the dark, the warmth, and the silence. You close your eyes and let the peace of the buried house carry you away into the deepest part of your dreams. You are drifting now, floating in that soft space between being awake and being asleep. Your body feels very light, even though you were tucked under several layers of heavy wool. The Longhouse has become a place of dreams. In this quiet hour, your mind begins to wander through the shadows of the room. You aren't thinking about work or the cold anymore. Instead, you are just feeling the rhythm of the house. You hear the deep, slow thump of the cow's heart and the tiny, fast patter of the goat's breath. These sounds mix together in your head, turning into a song that has no words. It is a song of the night shift, a song that tells you that everything is exactly as it should be. In the Middle Ages, people believed that dreams were very important. They thought that while the body rested in the straw, the mind could travel and see things that were hidden during the day. This is a simple historical fact. For a peasant, dreams were a way to escape the hard work of the fields. In your dreams tonight, you aren't cold or tired. You are walking through a summer meadow where the grass is as tall as your waist and the sun is warm on your back. You can smell the clover and the wild roses. This is the sweet hay coming back to life in your mind. The cows are already there, grazing in the golden light. It is a beautiful, peaceful place, and you feel very happy to be there. You move your hand in your sleep, and your fingers brush against a tally stick tucked into the edge of your straw bed. This is a specific micro-history detail of your life. A tally stick is a small piece of hazel wood with little notches carved into it. You use it to keep track of how many bags of grain you have left or how many sheep were born in the spring. It is a simple tool, but it is your memory in wood. As you touch the smooth notches, you feel a sense of order. You know exactly what you have, and you know it is enough to get you through to the spring. The stick is a bridge between your waking work and your sleeping peace. The simple explanation for why your dreams are so vivid is that your body is finally completely relaxed. Because the animal heat has taken away the ache in your muscles, and the pottage has filled your belly, your brain is free to play. The Longhouse is like a big, wooden cocoon that protects your mind just as much as it protects your body. You are safe from the wolves and the wind, so your dreams can be filled with light and warmth. You feel a sense of reflection. You realize that the night shift is not just about staying alive. It is about finding a place where you can be at peace. You have found that place in the heart of the straw. The silence of the buried house makes your dreams feel very real. There are no outside noises to wake you up. You don't hear the carts in the village or the shouting of neighbors. There is only the steady, calming breathing of the animals. This sound is like an anchor that keeps your dream boat from drifting too far away. You know that no matter where your mind goes, the big brown cow will be there when you wake up, keeping the air warm and the world steady. You feel a deep bond with her, a bond that goes beyond words. You are part of each other's lives, sharing the same air and the same dreams. There is a moment of atmospheric silence as you turn over in your nest. The straw makes a long, slow crinkle that sounds like the rustle of leaves in a forest. You think about the history watchman and how he is now a traveler in the world of sleep. You are no longer guarding the fire. You are exploring the shadows. You see the shapes of the rafters in your mind, but they look like the branches of a giant tree. The smoke looks like a silver mist. Everything in the house is being turned into something magical by your tired brain. It is a very cozy and wonderful way to spend the night. You feel the weight of the goat at your feet, and it feels like a warm stone in your dream meadow. You think about how lucky you are to have these small comforts. In the Middle Ages, life was often about the big things, the harvest, the Lord, the church. But at night, life is about the small things, the feel of the wool, the smell of the hay, and the warmth of a friend. You realize that these are the things that truly make a home. You are tucked away in your wooden shell, and you have everything you need to be happy. The darkness of the house is now so deep that it feels like you are underwater. But it isn't a scary feeling. It is like being in a warm, dark pool where you can just float and rest. You take a slow, deep breath of the musky air. It tastes of the earth and the animals, a rich and heavy flavor that makes you feel very grounded. You are not a ghost. You are a solid, living person in a solid, living house. You feel the strength of your own heart beating in time with the house. You are alive, you are warm, and you are dreaming. You think about the night shift as a journey. You started in the cold grey evening. You fought the blizzard, you fed the fire, and now you have reached the quiet center of the night. You have done all the work, and now you are getting the reward. You are safe in the arms of the Longhouse. You let your mind go even deeper into the dream meadow. You see the sun rising over the hills, but it doesn't wake you up. It just makes the world look even more beautiful. You are ready to stay in this peaceful place for as long as the night lasts. The history watchman is smiling in his sleep. The watch is being kept by the walls and the snow and the breathing cows. You have done your duty, and now you can let the dreams take over. You are warm, you are safe, and the Longhouse is holding you tight. You don't need to think about the morning yet. You just need to follow the song of the animals into the deep, dark quiet. You close your eyes even tighter and let yourself go, drifting away on a sea of gold and straw. The deep, heavy dark of the night is beginning to change. It is not bright yet, but the blackness is turning into a soft, charcoal grey. You lie in your nest, feeling the first tiny hint of the morning. The night shift is almost over. You look up toward the peak of the roof. The snow hole, which was a dark void all night, now shows a faint pale light. It is the color of a pigeon's wing. This is the first sign that the sun is climbing up behind the white hills. You feel a slow wave of relief wash over you. You have made it. You and the animals have survived the longest, coldest part of the winter night. In the Middle Ages, the coming of the light was a daily miracle. This is a simple historical fact. Without clocks or electricity, the sun was the only thing that told you the world was still turning. You watched the light grow stronger, moving down the soot-blackened rafters. It shows the dust dancing in the air and the frost that has formed around the smoke hole. You feel a sense of reflection. You think about how the house has held you safe. For all those hours of darkness and wind, this building was your entire universe. It didn't fail you. The walls stayed strong, the thatch stayed dry, and the animals stayed warm. You move your legs, and the goat at your feet wakes up. She stretches her neck and gives a small, quiet bleat. It is the first voice of the morning. You hear the cows starting to stir on the other side of the wall. Their hooves make a slow clack-clack on the stones as they stand up, shaking the straw from their coats. The sound of their breathing changes. It becomes quicker and more active. They're ready for the day, just like you. You reach for a specific microhistory detail, your horn comb. You pull it through your hair to get the bits of straw out. It is a simple act of tidying up, a way of saying that the time for sleeping is over and the time for doing has begun. The simple explanation for why you feel so good this morning is that the night shift worked. You are warm, your fingers move easily, and your heart is light. The animal heat kept the frost from your bed, and the thick walls kept the blizzard at bay. You look over at the hearth. The ash is cold now, but you know that deep underneath there might still be one tiny glowing spark. You'll find it, feed it a few dry twigs, and the heart of the house will beat with fire once again. You feel a sense of pride. You were the guardian of the night, and you have delivered your charges safely to the day. The silence of the snow is still there, but it feels different now. It is no longer a heavy weight. It is a fresh, clean start. You think about the history watchman and how his job is done. The gates of the day are opening. Soon you will push open the heavy oak door, dig through the snowbank, and see the white world sparkling in the sun. You will bring fresh water to the cows and sweet hay to the sheep. The cycle will start all over again. But for this one last moment, you just lie there, enjoying the warmth of the straw and the sound of the waking house. The light is filling the room now, showing the textures of the wool, the wood, and the stone. Everything looks solid and real. You feel a deep connection to this place. It is not just a house, it is a living thing that you are a part of. You take a long, slow breath of the morning air. It is a bit cooler now that the light is coming in, but it is fresh and clear. You feel strong and ready. The winter is still outside, but you have the warmth of the Longhouse inside you. You are a survivor, and you are home. The air is becoming still, and the light is growing soft and golden as it touches the edges of the world. You can feel the heaviness of sleep pulling at your limbs, but it is a gentle pull, like a boat being tugged toward a quiet shore. The long night of the Middle Ages is behind you now, and the safety of the morning is here. You are tucked deep into your nest, and there is nothing left for you to do. The cows are quiet, the sheep are still, and the fire is waiting to be woken. You have done your work, and you have kept the watch. You can let go of the stories now. You can let the sounds of the Longhouse turn into a distant hum that fades away into nothing. The warmth of the wool and the scent of the hay are all you need. You are safe in the arms of history, protected by the thick walls and the heavy thatch of time. The world is waking up, But you are allowed to stay in the quiet dark for as long as you need. Feel the weight of your blankets and the softness of the straw. You are exactly where you are meant to be. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended.